Nick Fuentes is a dissident right-wing Christian nationalist who did infiltrate the Trump campaign temporarily. He is influential with people like Kanye West. He's also just influential in the dissident right-wing in general. So while he is banned from most major platforms for being too extreme, he still is a popular figure amongst young men, and he also likes to throw stones from the sides, namely at Jordan Peterson, namely at Tim Pool today, and also he likes to talk about geopolitical affairs involving Israel because he thinks Israel is in charge of everything. So we're going to be watching this content, pausing it every 5 minutes or so, breaking it down and talking about it. So without further ado, let's get Mr. Nick the Knife Fuentes on my screen and break it down.
I saw today Tim Pool called me out on his show. Tim Pool called me out on Timcast Live. He said, I want Nick Fuentes and the Groypers to hear this. And he basically said the exact same thing that him and every other Israel shill has been saying. This is their line that was given to them for many months now. Did you see the clip?
If someone came to me and said, I don't like the U.S. spending money in these foreign wars, Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel, Afghanistan, Iraq, I'd say, oh, I understand.
I'm totally with you on that.
But when they come to me and they say the U.S. should be spending money on Israel, I say, what about other countries? No, Israel. And I'm like, dude, the only thing you care about is that you are Israel first and foremost. All the Groypers, Nick Fuentes and everyone there, Israel first. The only thing they ever talk about, they won't shut up about it. They love Israel. I get it. They hate it. They hate Israel. They hate AIPAC. They hate all these people, but it's the only thing they talk about. They act like no other problems exist. Right. And I'm like, the point is, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing in your mind is Israel. For me, it's America. How do we secure our borders? What's going on with fentanyl in Canada? What's going on with illegal immigration from Guatemala into our country? So when I have a list of countries I care more about, I'm like, first of all, American labor. Are we helping Gen Z get in the labor force, buy houses, and have families? That's the first thing I'm thinking about when I wake up. How do we build culture among Americans? How do we get people to be moralistic in our country? Then I'm worried about Mexico. They got cartels. They're shoveling drugs up to our country. Our borders insecure. Then I'm concerned about Guatemala. Then I'm concerned about El Salvador. Then I'm concerned about Honduras. Then Brazil. And at some point down the list, I'm like, there's Israel. But
sorry, pausing Tim's very passionate rant. I'm wondering how hard Nick is going to go, because you know there's a argumentative line that centers all of America's issues around Israel and nationalism and all that kind of crap. So I'm wondering how Nick is going to argue it. But I do think it's funny that Tim, in debates with me, debates with other people, he's like, well, I only care about America. I only care about America. And then here he's actually listing all of his geopolitical grievances, including Mexico, Guatemala, a few other countries. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's like, bro, if you took this geopolitical analysis and then you and I had an interesting conversation, I'm pretty sure I could convince you of my neoconservative geopolitical worldview. But Tim acts like a pure isolationist. So I'm actually, this is piquing my curiosity. I'll put it that way. I'm interested, number one, to see where Nick goes. I'm interested, number two, to see why Tim is taking a different tact in this conversation.
But these people wake up every day bashing their faces against the wall, screaming the word Israel. And I'm like, you are Israel first. And I hope you hear me.
Clearly, they're definitely focused on Israel far more than they are on the U.S.
Yep. And that's why when they said they would vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump, I said, that is a person who would burn this country to the ground because they care more about Israel. They hate Israel, but Israel matters so much more to them. They would see America burn if it meant bad things happen to Israel.
Cutting your nose to spite your face, yeah.
I don't know why you care so much. And they live in these crazy worlds where Israel is the most important country on the planet. I'm telling you, it is fascinating how they think Israel controls the weather. I like the amount of, that's not even a joke.
I know, it's obvious that Ian controls the weather, not Israel.
The amount of crazy conspiracies they think, they believe that Israel controls everything, is this secret.
Man, we are waking up to some spitting hot fire here. There's actually, I need to start taking notes. Let's take some notes. Oh, man. So let's go ahead and delete this. That was yesterday's show. So Tim's argument is that, well, actually, hold on. Let's leave that bold. Tim is that Groypers only care about Israel. blame all the world's problems on their problems on Israel. Tim is allegedly more pragmatic about caring about Central America as an issue first. And I'm going to I think I could steel man Nick's arguments before they start, but I want to see the way that he does it instead of me doing it. And then I'll go ahead and throw up Nick's line of argumentation here. Israel is the most important country on earth. So hold on. So I actually want to address that real quick before we move. So Israel, in some ways, if you're talking about geopolitical reality and historical reality, it's actually quite important. I have American main character syndrome because I think that we have our own continent. We have this sweet little narrative of like Western culture escaping Europe into the continent of Atlantis and creating like a new propositional country and all that kind of stuff. So I have American main character syndrome, and I'm going to keep it as long as I can. However, I understand how Israelis and Jews have main character syndrome as well. They were at the crossroads of humanity. They created the Abrahamic faith, which became the foundation for two other wildly popular religions that ended up being the 4 out of 7 billion people on the planet believe in the Abrahamic faith. And even the atheists and agnostics, they still are at least familiar with the Abrahamic faith. So as a result, I think Israelis and Jews can have some level of main character syndrome when it comes to that. And then not just that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. But not just that, but they also, now that they've created a nation state in the middle of, let's call it hostile territory, where Arab Muslims and other ethnic group Muslims are not friendly to the state of Israel, they're under constant threat. And let's face it, being under constant threat kind of gives you a sense of main character syndrome. So Israel is not the most important country on earth, but it definitely is a main character.
Cabal of Jews that are running the whole world, and I'm like, that is Israel's first you can get. They hate America, and they only care about Israel. It's the only thing they focus on.
I didn't even reply to it on Twitter. It didn't get that much attention. I don't know. Do people still watch Tim Pool? But he put out this,
Yes.
he went on this rant last night, and he said, I want Nick Fuentes and the Groypers to hear this. You are obsessed with Israel. He said, you're banging your head against the wall. You wake up and think about Israel. He said, I think about Guatemala and how they're sending asylum seekers across the border. I'm worried about fentanyl and the Mexican cartels. I'm worried about all this. And I literally believe, this is not a figure of speech, I literally believe this actually happened. Did they all get talking points? Did all of this, did Matt Walsh, Oron McIntyre, Tim Pool, they are either all in the same group chat and they're all talking to each other, or they're all getting the same talking points, the same Hasbara, the same Israeli talking points, because they are all saying exactly the same thing. They are all going out there, Oron McIntyre from Blaze TV, Dave Smith, who agrees with Oron, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire, and Tim Pool. They're all saying the exact same line, which is, I don't care about Israel, I care about America. Anyone that's criticizing Israel, anyone that is talking about this crisis, they are obsessed with Israel. And they're so obsessed with Israel, it is to the detriment of their loyalty to the United States. They care more about Israel than the United States. They say, I'm indifferent to Israel. I only care about the United States. And it's like the talking points went out maybe 2 or 3 months ago because they've all said exactly the same thing. I've already answered this. I've already responded to this. I've addressed this numerous times. And by the way, before we even get into that for even a second, Tim Pool loves to do this tough guy routine. You can't do that with me because you're afraid of having me on the show. You can raise your voice. You can get your beanie all up in a bunch and all that on Timcast with your sycophants, with your numbskull idiot sycophants that you have on your show. You can't play that game with me. You're afraid to have me on the show. I want Nick Fuentes to hear this. Yeah, as long as I'm not in the room. As long as I'm not in the room to address it.
Okay, I want to hear
Big
the
tough guy,
addressing.
big intelligent genius. I know the argument that's going to destroy Nick Fuentes just as long as he isn't in the room to respond, just as long as he's thousands of miles away. I'm easy to find. You know how to reach me. If you want to humiliate me and defeat me in debate, hey, asshole, bring me on the show. Say it to my face. Come on my show. You're afraid of your precious YouTube channel. You're afraid of losing your mainstream platform access, which I lost years ago. Come on my show. Do it on Alex Jones. Do it on
Okay, bro. I get it on the preamble. Let's go.
Zero Hedge. Do it on Elijah Schaefer. I mean, literally, name the time, name the place. You want me to hear it? Say it to my face, bitch. Say it to my face. Don't get all pressed on your show with all your sycophantic losers that you pay to sit there and agree with you and you talk over them. I mean, those people be impressed by anything. And this is the game that he's been doing this for years now. I want Nick Fuentes to hear this. Nick Fuentes isn't ready for this argument. Will you have him on the show? Will you debate him one-on-one, have a discussion?
All right, sorry. We're actually going to pause and break down because he's just going on a very long preamble. So I already went over how the United States and how Israel can both have main character syndrome. I do think that hearing the word Hasbara and then Googling it real quick, it's public communications. Apparently, it's a culturally acceptable part of Israeli culture enough that it has its own word, Hasbara, which is actually kind of interesting because I think that is going to get used. I don't know if you guys remember. There's this term that was thrown around a few years ago called taqiya, which is Taqqiyya, which is viewed as, I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying that this is the way that it's described. It's described as the way in which Muslims can lie about their intentions and what they're doing as long as it serves their own ends. And the history of the word taqiya is actually not in reference to lying to people outside of the religion. It's specifically in reference to Shia being authorized religiously to lie to Sunni so they're not oppressed. That's actually, oh, my boy snuck in. Hi, Baba. Oh, mini Baba. He wants to come hang out. So anyways, so the point is that, like, I wonder if Hasbara is going to become a very, like, normal, anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli talking point going forward, where they're just going to say that anything that seems like a tactful communication is going to be Hasbara. So it'll be thrown around the same way as taqiya. And then caring about Israel more than the U.S. is just a talking point. What I want Nick to do right now, I'm wondering if he's going to do it. If, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction, okay? So Israel, historically, has not existed because it's been conquered so many times. Historically, since its inception around 3200 BC, so before, or not 3200 BC, 1200 BC. It's been 3200 years since the state of Israel was created. So Israel conquered the land of Canaan. It was at the crossroads of humanity. It was in turn conquered by the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Crusaders, and the Muslims. And so in its series of histories, it's been conquered like half a dozen times, maybe a dozen times. And then not just that, but it faced persecution each time. And so that prompted the diaspora, where Israelis or Jews, that's why there's like this weird, jump back and forth between Judea, Israel, and the term Jew, but Jews spread out into the world. Well, the argument from people who don't like the state of Israel, who don't like Jews, is that Jews necessarily climb up the social hierarchy within other societies, not just to survive on an individual level, but because they want to advocate for Jews who are back in the nation state of Israel. And so when you're talking about AIPAC, when you're talking about international lobbying organizations, when you're talking about, spying operations and intel operations and not identity theft, like corporate technology theft, all of that is to serve the state of Israel. And so it's viewed like a web of influence and Hasbara and all that kind of stuff in order to support the state of Israel. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be Nick's line of argumentation, is that you can't care about race or nationalism or any of that kind of stuff because of Jewish influence, effectively saying like, well, you can't care about race, because if you care about race, then you're necessarily going to be instituting the next Holocaust. You're going to be reinstituting civil war. You're going to be reinstituting this. You're going to be reinstituting that. And so he's going to argue that it's Jewish influence that actually prevents Christian nationalism from taking root. So that's my prediction. Let's see how accurate it is. Zoe says, not Nick too short temper Fuentes. Well, listen, let's face it. Even if we disagree with the dude, he's entertaining, right? Well, it's for war. True. Bro is working on his stealth skills. Maybe. Grassroots Hegemon, good to see you, brother. Counterpoint. True. Justin says, correct. You get it. Good. Old school. Nick Fuentes, why are we watching this putz? Because he's funny. he's at least funny. Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I woke up this morning and there's so many things that we could do, right? We could watch another big whatever debate. We could watch Erudite some more. We will watch Destiny later today. We will watch Jordan Peterson and Megyn Kelly if we have time. But the truth is that like they're just not as edgy. They're just not as edgy. Destiny is as close to edgy as you get when it comes to Nick Fuentes, and therefore entertaining. Whereas I feel like what happened with the Erudite debate yesterday, no offense to Erudite, but Erudite was trying to be as good faith, steel-manny, not as hyperbolic, so she could ingratiate herself to the Tim Pool audience. And then Tim Pool was being as hyperbolic as possible, but because the topics were kind of dry, it just didn't really go anywhere. So I like Erudite. I like that debate. It was fun enough for me to watch, but it wasn't spicy. I want to get into something spicy today, right? Sacred Snow says, like the stream, and they're not wrong, okay? So I don't know if, I'll double check. I doubt we're at like 2 likes, but like the stream, it's free. Matter of fact, quick shill. So like the stream, engage in chat. There's interesting people in chat. They're very funny. Then engage with the VODs. If you miss a stream, watch the VODs, leave comments on the VODs so I get that sweet, sweet AdSense. If you got money burning in a hole in your pocket, super chats are appreciated, but never required. All right.
Your morning show, your evening show, on this other show. No, I can't do that because he's going to get my YouTube banned. No, I can't do that because he offended me when him and Ye got up and left. No, I can't do that because, his audience keeps asking for him and you're not supposed to do that. So, Tim, go fuck yourself. You were in a meeting with Netanyahu and nobody would even know that unless somebody leaked it. You got mad that you got exposed and found out. You met with the Prime Minister of Israel. You have lost your ability to say that you're impartial. I only care about America. Is that why you were meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu and telling him about how anti-Semitism is created by Qatar? I mean, give me a break. You allow Daily Wire to use your facility or vice versa for your election night coverage in 2024 after you denied that you were going to get bought out by them. You took Russian money. So shut the fuck up. You are not impartial. You don't care about America. And by the way, you talk about Israel all the time. You just take the pro-Israel position because you're in the pocket for Israel. You're in the pocket for Israel because you're platformed on YouTube. And if you went too hard against Israel, they'd take that away. And everyone knows that. You're in the pocket for Israel because of your business dealings with Daily Wire, which, as we found out, thanks to Candace Owens, is an Israel-controlled racket. They won't be in business with you. They won't have you as a host if you criticize Israel. And because you have met with the Prime Minister of Israel himself. So let's just cut the shit and let's just stop pretending that you're some Gen X skater bro who's a patriot and a truth teller and a conservative. You are a pawn of foreign intelligence. You took money from Tenet, which was funded by Russia. You're in bed with Daily Wire and you met with Netanyahu. You are not what you say you are. And by the way, the only reason you have an audience is because you're the only one left on YouTube.
God, dude, there's so much hate here. Okay. So Sorry to the Groiper in chat who wants me to cover Nick in a favorable light. I'm just going to go ahead and apologize. I feel like some of these comments are unfair, and so I'm going to break them from my perspective, okay? So, number one, meeting with a foreign leader. Listen, man, that's just access, okay? Meeting with Tim Pool doesn't mean I endorse everything that Tim Pool does, right? I think that's obvious enough. That doesn't feel necessarily good faith. If you wanted to show me that Israel made a secret agreement in order to start giving vast amounts of money to Tim Pool in order to sway his coverage favorably towards the state of Israel, then I would be more compelled. But just having a meeting doesn't mean anything. I would meet Nick Fuentes. Doesn't mean I agree with Nick Fuentes. I would meet Kanye West if he invited me. Doesn't mean I agree with Kanye West. I would just be interested in the conversation, right? So that one doesn't mean much to me. Took Russian money. I agree that it's highly sus to get like $800K over the course of a year and not ask why. You know, oh, we're just going to give you $800,000, but don't ask why, right? And then he's just like, yeah, sweet. I'll keep doing what I do and I'll take $800K. Now, if somebody walks up to me and they say, hey, Connor, do what you do. I don't care. Keep going. Just keep making the content that you're making, but here's $800K. Guess what I'm going to say? Yes, sir. And if they're like, don't worry about it, it's definitely not drug money, then I'll be like, yes, sir. And if they're like, don't worry about it, it's definitely not money laundering on behalf of a foreign operation, I'm going to be like, yes, sir. I wasn't worried about it. Go, here's my routing number. Now, that being said, if it has, strings attached to it, then maybe I'm going to start asking questions, right? And I do think it's funny that Tim Pool had that. He had that rant, right, where he slams his fist on the desk and he goes, Ukraine is the enemy of the United States, blah, 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 blah. Like, listen, I'm not going to lie. That's kind of suspicious. Like taking $800K and then calling Ukraine not someone who is geopolitically inconvenient to the aims of the United States, but it's an enemy of the United States. Let's just say there's some smoke there, right? Worked with the Daily Wire. Daily Wire is an Israel-controlled racket. I think the accusations there are just going to be that Ben Shapiro and all his cronies are going to be, Zionists. Not only are they going to support the Israel, but not only are they going to support Israel, but they're also going to sweep for the operations in Gaza and sweep for the operations in the West Bank. So they're not just going to say, "Oh yeah, I support the state of Israel existing, but I'm also critical of the way that they're managing Gaza and the West Bank and et cetera, et cetera." They're not even going to do that. They're going to say, well, Israel is the most, moral army on earth, and their civilian casualty rates are actually pretty low compared to most major conflicts. That's what they're going to say when you're talking about 65,000 dead, 200,000 dead indirectly, right? And then don't care about America. I don't think that's true. I think that all of us, okay, there's all these accusations of being a grifter, of taking money in order to say things you don't believe. And in my experience with successful alternative media personalities, bear in mind that I've hung out with Lauren Southern, Tim Pool, Phil Labonte, Steven, and then obviously I've had chats with half a dozen other like wildly successful people in alternative media. I think it's a combination, right? I think it's a combination of, yes, they know what makes them money. They know where their audiences will start pulling away from their perspective. Some people care about that and some people don't. But I think that where they've been ideologically captured, or where they've been captured, audience captured, or where they've been captured by moneyed interest, I think it's delusion. They basically say, well, I'm not as biased as I can be, therefore I'm not biased at all. So, yeah. I think Tim Pool does care about America. I do think that he does think that his talking points are relevant to the right wing. I think he does think that he's advocating for the best position possible. I just think that some of his perspectives are stupid. So, no offense, Tim. Thanks for having me on the show. But I'm gonna check in with chat real quick. Justin says, "Why is a right-wing political commentator talking to the PM of another country? Why not? Why not? I would talk to Emmanuel Macron if I could. I would talk to Bibi Netanyahu if I could. I would talk to Vladimir Putin if I could. I would talk to, who's a new guy? James Carney. I would talk to James Carney if I could. I would talk to any world leader if I could, just for clout, influence, understanding how their brain works, understanding geopolitical situations from their perspective, etc. Old School says, Nick is a 20-something guy with a 70-something personality. Hate has shriveled his soul. Well, I think he's in his late 20s now, so let's not give him too much credit. Conservative liberalism says a meeting doesn't mean anything. A world leader meeting with a podcaster behind the scenes, lol. I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything. I'm saying it doesn't mean that all of a sudden Tim Pool is going to just be Israel's lapdog, right? It does mean something if he is a political commentator pushing an agenda. I mean, I agree with that. Although I think that, so for instance, I haven't met with Bibi Netanyahu and I don't have Israel paying my stuff. I just happen to believe, based off of historical analysis, that Israel has a right to exist as a state. It should probably, no offense to my Israel shills in the chat, but I think that it should probably find something around the 67 borders, give Palestinians a two-state solution, and an international military peacekeeping force should oversee the development of Gaza and the West Bank. And we should make it like a humanitarian global mission to establish like a Palestinian state with peace and justice for all. The question whether or not there's any political will to do that, I don't think there is. I don't think anybody wants it because it's such a huge mess, and anybody who takes it on is going to be blamed for the mess. Zoe says, these meetings and conversations are very interesting and kind of needed, so they are seen and understand what is in your world. Yeah. So, and Sacred Snow says, and if the person saying it was a Russian agent or Russian aligned, I assume you'd reevaluate your message. Yeah. Enemy is a strong word. Liability. Yeah. See, conservative liberalism gets it. Zoe says, I was super funny how hard Tim went after Ukraine, but I mean, it's kind of crazy at all around all the people that are more behind Ukraine. Maybe, but again, like I don't have Ukrainians, giving me massive amounts of money. I just did geopolitical analysis, and I might be parroting the mainstream narrative, but it's because I believe in the mainstream narrative based off of the mainstream facts. So if somebody wants to present to me contradictory facts, they can. I've heard Nick Fuentes' arguments about Russia. I've heard his arguments against Israel. I don't find them compelling. Miles Otwell says, I get that he is legit in what he says, but between the femboys and the last name, how does the far right still take Fuentes seriously? Because he's smart and he's funny. Zoe says, I don't think how enough Israel and Palestine to have a strong feelings towards it, to be honest. It seems very difficult and has a long history. I think that's a cop-out. Like, so not you individually, Zoe. I'm not trying to, like, insult you. But I think that people like Chud, because I watched Chud the other day. He's like, no one in online politics has the capacity to comment on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. It's infinitely more complex than anybody gives it credit for. And therefore, these people like Vadim and Laura Box, they just need to shut the fuck up and go away. And in my opinion, no, it's not that hard, actually. 3,200 years ago, the Israelis conquered Israel. Then they got kicked out over the course of 6 or 7 different conquests by various countries. And then after that, they came back in the 19th century and they recolonized it and they took it. Only problem being that there were people who were already there. But then we get into like property disputes, land disputes, border disputes, the British mandate, the Nakba, the reverse Nakba, if you want to call it that, where all the Jews got expelled. And you get into a bunch of like human rights abuses and ethnic cleansings and murders. And so you can be upset by the ethnic cleansing and murders over our sense of like humanitarian care, but it's actually not that complicated, in my opinion. People kill people. People kill people for land. It's really that. I just think there's a conflict of interest. Probably. He already was their lapdog. If all their neighbors hate you and you get kicked out of everywhere you go, then you might be the problem. Okay. Then let them have their own country, J-Man. Let them have Israel. Boom. All the Israelis can stay in Israel. Problem solved. Good one, J-Man. All right, anyways. Sorry, back to the content. Sorry for yapping over Nick Fuentes, but it's my show.
So let's cut this.
Sorry, quick chill. Like the stream if you haven't liked it already. It is free. Follow on Twitch if you're not following already. That's free. If you got money burning in a hole in your pocket, do a super chat or a membership or whatever. Parasocial love to you and yours. Let's go.
Shit. Daily Wire, Turning Point USA, and Timcast have the benefit of being the 3 shows or the three properties on the right wing that colluded with the big tech platforms that they criticize to remain on the platforms. They're the last people standing. Yeah, I would have the biggest show on YouTube as well if all my competition got banned. It would be very easy. It's easy when you're the only game in town. I've been banned on YouTube for 5 years, over 5 years. I started my YouTube channel around the beginning of 2018. I got banned in the beginning of 2020. I was allowed on YouTube for all of 2 years before I got banned. You've been on there uninterrupted for 10. Never forget that. Never forget that. You are nothing. You are a mediocrity. You are a middling intellect. You read news clippings and give your insipid response to them with a room full of sycophants. And the only reason you have any kind of audience at all, forget about a large audience, the only reason anybody gives you the time of day is because all your competition got banned. All your former associates, all your competitors, Vince James, me, anybody that has ever told the actual truth about COVID vaccines, BLM, the Ukraine war, the state of...
Oh, come on. You can't hit me with all that while I'm chewing on my trail mix. So hold on. There's a point here. Tim is popular. Tim is popular because his opponent's rivals got banned. But let's see all the things that Nick is claiming he was right on, okay? I think that's important. So let's try to take notes. He goes a little fast, but let's take some notes.
Vince James, me, anybody that has ever told the actual truth about COVID vaccines, BLM, the Ukraine war, the state of Israel, the Holocaust, anything of that nature has been banned and got banned a long time ago.
All right, so hold on. Let's break this down really quick. In reference to COVID and the vaccinations, this is what pisses me off, is all the conspiracy theorists are declaring victory, but they haven't won the war in any way whatsoever. So in reference to COVID vaccinations, there were COVID vaccination injuries, but they were statistically smaller than what happened with the actual disease, and the mass die-off that was predicted by anti-COVID vaccination conspiracy theorists hasn't happened. 99.7% of the population was going to survive COVID no matter what, but 0.03% of the American population would have been, or hold on, 0.03% of the population did die, and that was 1.1 million people, which is a shitload of people. 3,000 people died on 9/11, and we launched a multi-trillion-dollar war because of that terrorist attack. 1.1 million people, even if they're old, even if they're over the age of 50, that's still a shitload of people. So pretending that COVID wasn't a big deal, I'm sorry, it's stupid. It's just stupid, okay? Then, when it comes to the vaccination, all of the data that I've seen come out in the past year has shown that the vaccination did reduce your chances of serious injury or death. And so the vax population compared to the unvax population, your chances of injury or death is actually substantially less. So COVID, sorry, Nick, you weren't right about COVID. Then when it comes to BLM, he was like, oh, BLM sucks and it's an anti-white racist movement. Okay, there's still police brutality that we should deal with. And as a matter of fact, we're kind of screwing ourselves right now because all of the political momentum that was around BLM, no offense to the Democrats and the liberals and the progressives, they squandered it. They didn't institute any legislation that would actually change police brutality. So you can say that you're right, but I have a feeling that Nick was saying quite a bit more things that were spicy besides BLM squandered its political capital and its money in order to get police reform done, and they didn't do it. And so as a result, police brutality is going to continue unfettered. I don't think that that's Nick's position. I think that's my position, right? And the truth about the Ukraine war, as far as I've seen with Nick, it's been that like Russia is actually challenging the American hegemony and that they have a geopolitical interest in keeping Ukraine within their orbit. And the United States has been slowly strangling Russia geopolitically. Okay, I don't give a shit. Right? Reason why I don't give a shit is because I'm an American hegemony enjoyer. I'm a liberal hegemony enjoyer. I like the Republic of the United States. I like American military empire. I like the commercial empire that we're a part of. I like spreading democratic values and Republican values. I like mixed economy capitalism. So sucks to suck, right? He just picked the Russians. He didn't have some like interesting narrative. He just picked the Russian narrative. Same thing with Israel and same thing with the Holocaust. So what was it? Like Nick joked that it was like 300,000 dead instead of 6 million dead. Okay, cool. Have your jokes, you know? All right, sweet. Justin, you didn't listen to what I said. Justin is our other groiper. We got Justin and we got Justin and we got what was it? Razzle Cherry. Razzle Cherry's our other groiper. Okay. Justin says that's just wrong, though. It just came out that the vaccines cause myocarditis officially. Thank God I listened to Nick and didn't get the COVID vaccine. Justin, I need you to hear me. When you're making choices about life, you can never make a choice that has zero risk. You can only make a choice that has a reduced risk, okay? So if I need you to listen to me very carefully. Let's say that the vaccine has a 1/3 of 1%, and that's not even true. It's like 1 in a few million. But let's just use simple numbers so we can get the point across. Let's say that there's 1/3 of 1% chance, so 0.3% chance that the COVID vaccine would give you myocarditis. Okay? Let's leave that alone. Let's say that if you just get sick with COVID, there's a 1% chance of getting myocarditis. So the vaccine reduces your chances of getting myocarditis by, 2/3. So what Nick is doing and what a lot of right-wing COVID vaccine skeptics are doing is they're saying, well, 0.03% of the population is getting myocarditis. Therefore, the vaccines don't do what they said they're going to do. And the vaccine could definitely injure you and maybe even kill you. That's what they're saying. But what they're ignoring is the fact that if you just catch the disease, you have an increased risk of death or injury. So if you're a part of the 99% of people who just get the disease naturally and you survive, then you're like, oh my God, Nick was right. I got the disease and I was totally fine. Thank God I didn't take the vaccine. But it's just a sleight of hand trick. It's literally look over here. Look over here. It has nothing to do with what the actually correct choice is. The correct choice is doing the thing that reduces your chances of disease or injury, or death to the greatest degree possible. Right. Dadain Dan gets it. The vaccine causes myocarditis at like 1/10 the rate of the actual disease, bro. Thank you, Dadain Dan. Dadain Dan gets it. So, Justin, I'm not, lots of people are trapped in their cults of personality, so I don't expect you to hear me necessarily this time. But I do want you to, if you don't understand what I said, I want you to rewind it and listen to it. All right? Because these people who are saying like, oh, we were right about COVID vaccines. No, they weren't. They're fucking lying. They're lying or they're stupid or they're delusional. Sacred Snow says, Counterpoints. I mean, you can claim that Israel-Palestine is too complex for streamers to understand and that they aren't as knowledgeable as historians, but historians disagree as well. And Loner and Destiny have done more research on Israel-Palestine than 99% of the population. Agreed. That's why I don't like the Chud Logic and Queeman response of, I'm just a drama YouTuber and I don't understand anything about anything, so nobody can understand anything about anything ever. That's not good enough for me. Zoe says, yeah, you're probably right, but I just got into politics in the last 5 years, so learning in other places politics seems crazy, but that's what you guys are there for. True. Horatio says, Nick would be really dangerous if he was allowed fully back on YouTube, and so what you want, he can draw an audience. I mean, whatever. We still have to contend with these ideas anyways. That's also true of Hassan Piker. That was actually going to be one of my points, is that Hassan Piker is allowed to be anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli on YouTube. That's because he does it from a leftist bend. Whatever 4690 says, Elon allowed Nick back on X and he encouraged the Groypers to dogpile Elon until he banned a ton of them. Lol. PSYOP. How many people die from the flu each year? Like 30,000 to 50,000. But we had 1.1 million excess deaths in 2020 and 2021. So you can't say, oh, it was just the flu. If somebody says that it was just the flu that killed people in 2020 and 2021, they're either crazy, they're delusional, or they're fucking lying. You need to stop listening to these people. Dude, and I'm not accusing Nick of this. I think Nick's a fairly smart guy. But you have to understand, people have, sorry for the voice crack, people have figured out how to game social media. On social media, the more extreme you are and the crazier shit you say, the more likely you're able to get attention, positive and negative. And so what they do is they say the craziest shit possible in order to get attention while still trying to play within TOS so they don't get permanently banned. And then they use that attention in order to monetize. You have to understand that the game is rigged. So as much as the game for the mainstream media is to take donations from, I don't know, military industrial complex and pharmacy companies and all that bullshit, you have to understand that alternative media is gamed to be the craziest person possible while not getting banned. That's the game in alternative media. I don't like that because I think it's made the world the worst place. We'll get back into the content momentarily, but just let me engage with chat because they're popping off. Wow Man says, is the impact of long COVID still being explored right now, or has it stopped due to interest dying down? I think interest has died down. Nobody cares. If you're fatigued and you're tired because you got COVID, nobody gives a shit anymore. Like, get back to work or don't get back to work. Just make a choice. Old people should have been quarantined because they were most affected. Okay. Hindsight's 2020. Sacred Snow says red meat can also cause cancer. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop pounding ribeyes. Told you Destiny's mother worked for DARPA. Yeah, but Destiny's mother's, no offense to Destiny or his mom, but Destiny's mom, her brain has rotted inside her skull, and now you can listen to her talk, and it's just like, Jesus. Like, okay, that's early onset Alzheimer's, right? You can be all three, all three of what? You can be hyperbolic and a lunatic and not get banned, I guess. I just can't do that. I'm trying to follow the truth as much as possible. Anyways, all right, let's let Nick tell us other things. But basically, I'm an educated, smart guy. I try to be good faith as much as possible. I still disagree with Nick the Knife Fuentes on all 5 of these topics. Moving on.
Never forget that. Never let one day pass that you are not reminded that you are a fucking nothing. You are a nothing. You are being rewarded. You are being elevated and promoted because of your compliance, because of your obedience to a system that you purport to criticize. And you call yourself a punk rocker. You're a fucking bitch. You're a fucking pussy.
Rude.
I'm a punk rocker. I'm doing 2000s era. Shut the fuck up and get the fuck out of here. Go have another cocksuck ball wash session with the president of Israel. You fucking loser. I'm so sick of it. And that goes for all of them. Matt Walsh, Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk. They all cut a deal. Do you know what happened to anybody that was a truth teller around 2020 and 2021? They got banned. You remember the COVID pandemic? People like Sneeko were being banned. Sneeko, he's not even political. Sneeko got banned for talking about the lab leak hypothesis in 2020 and 2022. That's what happened to everybody. That's what happened to anybody that was saying anything. Gavin McInnes, Vince James, Sneeko, me, Sam Hyde, you name it.
That didn't make you correct, right? So the argument from the libs and progressives, which I'm not saying I totally disagree with or totally agree with, but the argument from the libs and the progressives who controlled social media at the time was that this was a deadly pandemic. This was killing people. And there were these people on the internet, Groypers and Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys and this guy and that guy, Sneeko, all that kind of stuff. And they were saying stupid shit for attention. They were saying like, "Ooh, we're truth tellers. We know what's going on. The deep state doesn't want you to know that it's what do they call it? A clock shot. They don't want you to know that you're going to die." And so what the liberals and progressives did is they said, listen, if a bunch of idiots listen to these idiots, then more people are going to die. Therefore, we're going to make it terms of service that you can't talk about this shit. And if you talk about this shit, you're either getting suspended or banned, right? That's what happened. So Nick acting like them getting banned is evidence of them telling the truth is not held up by the statistics after the shot. The right wing was vindicated on COVID. How? How, Justin? 1.1 million people died. In my earlier explanation about statistics when it came to COVID vaccine efficacy is still true. So you explain to me how the right wing was wrong on COVID, okay? We didn't get permanent lockdowns. We didn't get permanent 15-minute cities. We didn't get permanent COVID flu, what do they call it? Like vaccine passports. We didn't get lockdown in perpetuity. There wasn't a mass die-off. What were they right about? Because I was told by friends of family, basically family, just family not by blood. I was told by family not by blood that this was a deep state World Economic Forum degrowth conspiracy theory in order to activate nanites within everybody's bloodstream, kill them, and harvest their organs. That way they could use their organs in order to do life extension for like rich and powerful people. So I just listed you like 6 or 7 ideas that the right wing was wrong on. So what were they right about? Feel free to list it. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Wow Man says, Commander Haircut, I'd pay good money to see Nick Fuentes participate in Creator Clash. Oh God, Destiny versus Nick would be so good. Destiny versus Nick in a boxing match would be sick. I would train either or both of them. Sacred Snow says, I hate Nick as much as the next guy, but I infinitely enjoy covering his content over Tim Pool or Hassan. True. You have to add comedy to the deplorable. You can just sit there and sweep for terrorists. Yes. Unfortunately for the world, Nick is intelligent and funny. Dane Dan says, it's funny how anti-vax people use the government being wrong a couple of times to justify listening to people who lie about almost everything. Conservative liberalism says pushing shots on kids was madness. 15-minute cities was a concept long before COVID in the domain of city planners. Euros are talking to it. Yeah, but conservative liberalism, so you're saying that pushing the shots on teenagers was crazy or whatever. I would still have to look because I do know that there was vaccine injuries. I do know that there were people who died or got myocarditis or got like long-term heart shit. As a matter of fact, I know a person who got long-term heart shit from COVID. So you would still, before you tell me that we should have not vaccinated people at all, you have to show me the stats on people who got injured or killed from the disease and from the vaccination. And if the number for the vaccination is substantively lower than the people who got the disease, you're still fucking wrong. Like, I love you. You're like a regular chatter. I appreciate you being in my chat. But bro, like you gotta throw me a bone here. That was Q. Okay. And you still haven't come back with something that the right wing was correct about in reference to COVID. This is what annoys me, lumping every conspiracy theory into one. Then tell me one that was correct. If I'm doing the wrong thing by listing 6 things that I heard commonly during 2020 and 2021, then you do your job as a chatter and you list the one that they were correct about. Nick is definitely the funniest of all the right-wing shitters, even if he's the most extreme, probably. Agreed. Dude, you listen to crazy people on COVID. The only conspiracy I heard is that they signed off all the deaths as COVID. Okay, that's still 1.1 million excess deaths. This is another thing, whatever, 4690. This is another thing that drives me crazy. People are like, well, they were signing gunshot victims as COVID deaths. You know what actually ended up happening was if somebody had COVID, the database that they were using to track deaths, they listed them as a COVID death, but within the database itself, they updated cause of death as they got that information. And so the people who got shot, but who happened to have COVID, they got removed or updated off of the fucking list. But right-wingers, I'm getting pissed off now, have been talking about the people who have gotten shot enlisted as dead from COVID for the past decade. They didn't even read the fucking article that they cite all the gosh darn time. And then on top of that, there were 1.1 excess deaths. There were 1.1 million excess deaths. That wasn't flu. That wasn't gunshot. That wasn't mislabeling. 1.1 million people died more than average. You can't explain that except for through a pandemic disease. So stop saying, I'm not trying to attack you individually, but stop saying stupid shit in my chat and then acting like you're telling me something, because you're not. You haven't told me anything yet. Well, do you read the Twitch chat or YouTube? I read both. Sneeko got banned for talking about having sex with a woman and slapping her around. Sneeko was an edgy boy. You know, tell me what they were right about. Weren't they vindicated on the lab versus wet market thing? Sure. But Jon Stewart was talking about how it was a lab leak. I agree. If you want to say that liberals and progressives are fucking sheep, no offense, liberals and progressives, and when they get scared, they just start parroting mainstream talking points, that's fine. I don't care. You can say liberals and progressives are fucking sheep and they only parrot mainstream talking points when they're scared. Totally agreed. Okay? What was the right wing correct about? You've given me one thing so far, by the way. Grassroots gave me the one thing, which is that it was probably a lab leak instead of a wet market. And by the way, I understand why liberals and progressives were doing the noble lie. The reason why they were doing the noble lie about the wet market is because if it's a lab leak, then people then in turn like theorize that it's intentional and therefore it's Chinese people's fault and therefore you can beat them up in the street. I don't know if you remember that, but Asians just started getting the shit kicked out of them randomly in the fucking street, and it was because people blame them for COVID. Stupid people blame them for COVID. So, you know, that's why they lied about the lab leak versus wet market thing. Also because they still haven't proven the lab leak. It's just probably the lab leak. Dane says, Howtown did a video on COVID deaths and made a strong argument that the excess deaths were undercounted. Probably. I have to watch other people watch people. I don't like to support their content. I'd rather support someone I like. Cool. Hello, I came from Twitch because you didn't read my comment there. Okay, well, hi, Dennis. Thank you for coming over. Sacred Snow says, also, you can't say C-19 wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. That's Monday morning quarterback shit. When there's a pandemic, you have to treat it that it can be deadly. Sure. Justin says, you're talking about the extreme predictions. I'm talking about principle. A rush vaccine for a pandemic when people aren't dropping dead left and right like the happening. It's the principle. Justin, 1.1 million people died even with lockdowns and a rushed vaccine. 1.1 million people. In the United States alone, by the way. That's just the US. A third of 1% of the population died. So don't tell me it wasn't serious. It was serious. You guys just don't care because you're young, which is fine. I'm younger, right? I didn't have a 99.7 chance of dying. I had a 99.9% chance of living. So, I mean, I was fine. I agree. I was largely fine. Okay. And that doesn't mean that it didn't kill a fuckload of people. Just because they were over the age of 50 doesn't mean that they didn't have some societal value. Like all you're telling me, whenever you're like, oh yeah, but they were all old though, all you're telling me is you don't love your grandparents or your older parents. That's all you're telling me. Sorry for getting pissed off, but chat's like playing with all the stupid ideas that these dickheads fucking yap about. I'll catch up with chat and we'll move into the content, but still, fucking getting me all worked up. Get me all worked up on Tuesday. Gray Jedi says, love or hate Destiny. One thing I learned from him is reading more than a headline means you are more informed than 99% of people. It's true. How about Fauci coming out and saying N95 masks didn't do fuck all and lied to people just to say a couple of weeks later that it was the way to go? Because, dude, I've already seen the YouTube video. It's like, this is a funny thing. So I'm going to put my butt by your face and I'm going to fart. And on one hand, I'm going to do it without a piece of clothing. It's just going to be my naked butt farting in your face. And the other one is going to be where I'm wearing shorts. Which one would you prefer? Now, did I stop all of the fart particles from reaching your face by wearing a pair of shorts? No. But is it preferable to have somebody fart in your face when they're wearing a pair of shorts versus when they're butt ass naked? Yes. And that's the explanation between N95s. It just reduces slightly the amount of disease that you're inhaling. You have to prove significant harm that was done by the path we took that outweighs the toll of the disease by some proportion. You can't just say it wasn't bad, so all measures taken were bad. Yeah, and that's what they're doing. Zoe is the thunder. Remember when conspiracies were just cool to think about and not mainstream? Yeah, but we're actually dealing with conspiracies that have real world consequences, which is why we're fighting about them. Crayon says, conserve liberalism. How many percent of the people in the U.S. have comorbidities? Isn't it like 30 to 50% of the population? Do fat people deserve to live? Do people with cancer deserve to live? Do what is it? Do people who smoke deserve to live? I love the comorbidity argument. Effectively, the comorbidity argument is if you have pre-existing disease, then you deserve to die. I think that on a funny day, I say you're obese, you got diabetes, you got COPD, you catch COVID and you die, then it is what it is. Maybe you should take a fucking walk and maybe you shouldn't drink as much soda. I think that because I'm a callous asshole, but you say that as a serious argument. It's fucking crazy. Dennis Bondar says, so if we talk about Corona, then I was surprised that so many people have died. There's like Germany, there was a lot of deaths too, but nowhere near US level. Yeah, fuckloads of people died. Miles says, I get frustrated because the bad parts about COVID get misconstrued. It wasn't that it was the deadliest disease of all time. However, it was one of the most contagious ever. Yeah. 1/3 of 1% of the population is a fuckload of people. If I lined up 1.1 million people and I shot them on your fucking doorstep, you would be shocked by that. But because they died from a fucking flu disease, it's just not shocking to you. Grassroots says the rush vaccine worked. I don't know if anyone remembers, but the projections were something like 3.4 million if the rates were uniform for similar populations. Yeah, we would have lost more. Justin says, you're right. I think the trade-off was bad. So many kids lost years of socializing and now they're atomized. Not a good future. Justin, come on, man. You're just hitting me with talking points. You know what you just told me? You know what you just fucking told me? You said kids had to stay home and play Roblox with their friends and FaceTime instead of playing down at the local park. Therefore, we should have let 2 million more people die. Are you fucking high? Like, how does that sound good to you? Does that make sense to you? I'm sorry for being fucking rude. I am. I'm sorry for being rude to you. I'm sorry for being rude to everyone in chat. But you guys just say shit, right? Like, there's a charismatic person. This face is a little creepy, right? But I make creepy faces on stream. There is a charismatic, smart, funny person who just says shit confidently, and you just repeat it without thinking about it. Oh no, for 2 years, kids had to play fucking Roblox and FaceTime their friends. Therefore, they're fucked for the rest of their lives. Is that a serious point that you have? They can't go to the science center now. They can't go to concerts now. They can't go hang out with their friends now. No, they can. They can go to the fucking bar. They can go fucking do whatever. They don't want to because they're fucking lazy. Right? Playing Roblox with their friends, playing Minecraft with their friends, and hanging out on Discord is easier than going to the bar, and it's also less expensive. COVID didn't generationally, psychologically fuck these people for the rest of their lives. If they want to grow the fuck up, they can grow the fuck up. You're just saying shit. You're not thinking about the shit that you're saying. It's fucking crazy, man. Go outside. Sorry, I'll get back into the content, I promise. I know I've said that like twice now, but chat is just popping off and they are pissing me off. No offense. I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the stream. Please remember to like the stream. Please remember to follow. Please remember to engage in chat. Please remember to watch the VODs and like the VODs. Also, if you have a super chat burning a hole in your pocket, it's appreciated but never required. All right, let's calm down before the clot shot fucking gets me a heart attack while I'm yelling at people in chat. Dustin Babola says, Connor, the vaccine also reduced the incidence of young people being hospitalized, which led to overall hospital occupancy. People forget many hospitals in major cities were at capacity. Dude, we have people in our fucking chat who are like, we got dead bodies hanging out in fridge trucks. You're 100% wrong about the N95 mask issue. Why? Why? I think Connor likes smelling farts. Fuck you guys. You guys are crazy. All right. Anyways, if I try to keep doing chat, it's just going to be me arguing about COVID with chat for like 10 hours. So I guess I got to get back into the content. My daughter has autism, couldn't do school or therapist between 5 to 8. She was severely delayed. Okay. Is that better than other people dying? Billy Koo? I'm sorry about your daughter being severely autistic, but you gotta make choices. Y'all remember the plagues of the olden days? 1/3 of Europe gone, Spanish flu, 50 million dead. We got it pretty good. We did. Thank you, Groovy Macrot, for being sane. Anyways, all right. I'm sorry for yelling at you guys. I do parasocially love you. But sometimes y'all just be saying shit. Y'all be saying crazy shit. But why are you reacting to that Nick guy who said your body, my choice, and then got destroyed after that? Because it's funny. Because he's a fucking asshole, and it's funny. Zoe is the Thunder says, for the trauma bonding and having to deal with the content in chat. Thank you for the $10, Zoe. I do appreciate it. All right. Let's get back to your body, my choice, Nick the Knife Fuentes, okay?
Every single person that was saying anything of substance got banned for one or another reason at that exact time. Whether it was Ukraine, BLM, COVID vax, COVID pandemic, mask mandate, election fraud.
Sorry, I took a bite of trail mix. Have they proven the election fraud, Nick? It's been 5 fucking years. It's been 5.5 fucking years. Trump controls the executive branch. He could prove the fucking voter election fraud like that, but he doesn't. Why? Is it because it's a giant conspiracy theory, or is it because he's a fucking liar?
I mean, you name it. And now Tim Pool, who's running his own fiefdom over there in that very sad little house in West Virginia, he's going to pretend like he's some kind of hero or something. You're fucking bald. You're fucking stupid. You are a coward. You are a loser. You want me to hear something? Have me on the show and say it to my face. We'll see how smart you really are. Genius. You can't exist in my world. You could never exist in my world. I got put on a no-fly list. I got my money frozen. I got subpoenaed. I was banned from everything for years. I'm still banned from virtually everything. You
Thank you for the memberships, Grassroots. I appreciate you.
could not exist in my world. So you have to pretend it doesn't exist. You could never exist. You couldn't spend 5 seconds in my predicament. So you have to pretend that it's not there. That's why you're yelling at me from thousands of miles away. I hope he hears this. That's why you have to come up with excuses and say, well, they're from Qatar. They're controlled opposition. One of us got millions of dollars from a foreign country. It wasn't this show. One of us is somehow.
Yeah, you just got like $700,000 from a Bitcoin bro who committed suicide. You know, come on, Nick. Come on, man.
Evaded censorship and suspension from social platforms. It's not this one. So, you know, all that aside from the obvious, of course, if you care about America, you have to care about Israel. Why are
I don't think he said that.
we banning all international students from America? Oh, because of Israel, because of our Israel-controlled Secretary of State. Why have we sent 90,000 tons of military hardware to Israel in the past 2 years? Because our government is controlled by Israel. Why is the border not secure? Do you know? Why did 10 million illegal aliens come into America even long after Republicans took control of the House in 2022? Because we had to stop negotiating for border money from the Democrats so we could fast track foreign aid to Israel. That was in April of last year. And we could go on and on. We could talk about the ADL. We could talk about AIPAC. We could talk about Bill Ackman and Ronald Lauder. We could talk about Miriam Adelson. We could talk about Little Tech and Jacob Hellberg and the subterfuge with Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel and JD Vance. I mean, where do you want to begin with all of that? I mean, just cut the shit. Everybody's wise now. But now they're deploying all these other arguments really to just get you to take your eye off the ball. Okay, Israel killed JFK. Israel took...
Dude. Yeah, Groyper's just be eating this shit up, dude. He's just be saying shit. He's just saying shit. We all got the same shit. What? Yeah. Why is my lawn grass uncut? Israel. Why did I stub my toe the other day? Israel. Why does my wife hate me? Israel. Why did my kids give me the middle finger? Israel. Are you serious, bro? Are you fucking serious? Why did my dog take a shit on the neighbor's yard and then the neighbor got mad at me? Israel. Why is there traffic on the street? Israel. Are you fucking shitting me, man? Dude, I'm sorry for getting pissed off again. we all got access to all of the unredacted JFK shit, and anybody who wanted to say anything about who killed JFK had the perfect narrative, because there was a piece of the fucking documentation that said that Israel had intel that forewarned of the JFK assassination, and also JFK didn't want Israel to have fucking nukes. And then after LBJ became president, he had nukes. And there was this one guy who committed suicide who said that LBJ told him that he did it. And then there was, what was the other one too? Oh yeah, and then there was like Russians who pre-warned of the JFK assassination. So if you wanted to believe it was the Russians, you could say it. If you wanted to say it was Cosa Nostra, you could say it. If you wanted to say it was Israel, you could say it. If you wanted to say he was a lone gunman, you could say it. There was nothing definitive that came out of the JFK files, and apparently that's all of the fucking JFK files. So how can you say it's 100% Israel? Because you have a narrative for why they wanted to take out JFK. There was an equally valid narrative for why the Soviets wanted to take out JFK. What the fuck, man? He's just saying shit. He's just saying shit and not backing it up. And people fucking yup this shit out. It was all blacked out. No, it wasn't. It wasn't all blacked out. They fucking released 99% of it. What the fuck are you talking about? Sacred Snow says, I think I remember Grassroots saying he was Puerto Rican. We need to grill hottest merch a Puerto Rican guy carrying a massive stack of packs of hot dogs. Hell yeah. Kash Patel literally didn't release the JFK files because he said it would cause more anti-Semitism. Israel did it. Jesus Christ, dude. Y'all just be saying shit. It was all blacked out. Find me. Dude, Justin, I'm telling you. Don't tell me that Nick said it in a stream 5 streams ago. According to what I understand about the JFK files, JFK files, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. Don't worry about it. What was held back from the JFK files? What do we know about the release? Blah, blah, blah. The vast majority of the documents related to the assassination of President JFK have been released, but some are still withheld primarily due to potential harm to national security and ongoing investigations. Specifically, certain information related to intel gathering, informant protection, and ongoing organized crime investigations continue to be withheld even after previous release. This doesn't say fucking it would cause anti-Semitism. Obviously, that's an AI summary, but you can go ahead and fucking tell me what it is. Excuse me. You can tell me what would cause anti-Semitism. Let's go ahead and Google your claim. Kash Patel says he can't release additional intel because of anti-Semitism. I would love to find an article or anything. Let's go ahead and open these two. FBI head Kash Patel goes ballistic after House Dem accuses him of lying about appearing on anti-Semitic podcast. Okay, so that's not it. At Senate confirmation hearing, Kash Patel says something fucking else, paywall and advertisements. So, no, you made a claim. You go find me the fucking source for your claim where you said that Kash Patel said that he couldn't release all of the JFK files because it would cause anti-Semitism. That's what you said. You said some crazy fucking shit. And I guarantee you, like 99.9%, you don't have the evidence to back what you just said. You're just saying shit.
Took down the towers at 9/11.
Sorry, what?
Okay, Israel killed JFK. Israel took down the towers at 9/11.
Nick, you're a fucking idiot. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you, Nick. I'll talk to you anytime, anywhere. Let me know. I'll have these bullet points. Okay, I'll search for it. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate you.
11. Israel brought us to war in Iraq and in every country in the Middle East, in Syria, in Libya.
Holy shit.
Now, they want us to go to war in Iran right now. The National Security Advisor, which is one of the top security posts in the U.S. government, was dismissed because he was working for Israel. And you want to tell everybody, after being silent on that subject for years, out of omitting that, out of fear of being censored, you never talked about that for years.
Sacred Snow says, Connor, do some box breathing, brother. You're getting one guy into a bad mood. I'm really not. Honestly, I'm a better creator when I'm grumpy.
of cowardice. Now that it's unignorable, now that everybody's talking about it, now that everybody's wise to what's going on,
Everybody
now you have a
knows.
hot take and you want to address it and say, well, I only care about America. That's not true. You only care about your show. You only care about your asshole show that sucks. You only care about your panel show where you wear a beanie and a t-shirt and you read news clippings and talk about how Democrats are attacking Trump yard signs. Sit down and shut the fuck up and know your place. You are nothing. You are a mouthpiece for a regime. It isn't even the American regime. Shut the fuck up. Don't even talk to me. You want to talk to me? Get in a room with me so I can respond. I hope Nick Fuentes and the Groypers hear this. You are nothing.
I'm going to let him play. I'm going to let him play because if I pause every second in order to get pissed off, we're just never going to get through it. I'm going to lift weights while we do this too. If you have weights at home, you should lift weights.
That's what I have to say about that. So anyway, I saw that clip and I'm just like beside myself. It's all of them. Have you recognized the pattern yet? Trent Horn, Tim Pool, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. So much to say about me. So much to say about this topic. Well, in some cases. They're so clever. They're so talented. None of them, not one of them, many of them don't even dare to say my name, but they certainly won't be in a room with me.
Nick Fuentes. Next time you're in Florida, let's hang out. Nick Fuentes.
Because they know they would be utterly destroyed. Utterly. And that goes, by the way, for literally Jordan Peterson, Shapiro, Bronze Age pervert, any single one of them. So I'm just sick of hearing about it. You want me to hear it? You know how to reach me. You know how to find me. Okay. I'm easy to find. You know how to find me. You know where to find me. You know how to get in touch. Nick.
How do I get in touch, Nick Fuentes?
Fuentes, I hope him and the Groypers hear this. They're slamming their head against the wall about Israel. I think you're the one that's melting down. I think you're the one that's slamming your head against the wall. Because over the last 7 years, has the mainstream conversation gotten closer to me or to you? You've been on YouTube at the pinnacle because all your competitors got shut down. Somehow you survived.
Justin says, because I want to be, Justin is the second polite Groyper that we've had on the channel. So I want to be polite to him back. Okay. I am sorry. I was wrong. The claim was Epstein files, not JFK. In reference to the Epstein files, I almost guarantee you that Jeffrey Epstein was honeypotting random powerful people inside the United States, getting them to have sex with underage prostitutes, videotaping it, using it as blackmail, and selling the blackmail and intel that he got to the CIA and the Mossad. So while I still kind of doubt that there's a specific claim where Kash Patel is like, well, I got to prevent anti-Semitism, so I can't release the Epstein files. I get the vibe. I understand the vibe because he was probably working for Mossad and he was working for the CIA. And the reason why I say that confidently is because Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, Robert Maxwell, he used to do that. He was a triple agent for Russia, the United Kingdom, and Israel, and he was buried in Israel, and there were intel leaders in Israel who said, people do not understand the amount to Robert Maxwell has helped the state of Israel, and they said that at his eulogy. So I almost guarantee you that Robert Maxwell was running honeypots in the 70s and 80s in order to blackmail rich and powerful people in Europe in order to get intel for the Mossad. And that's Ghislaine Maxwell's daddy. So the key to finding Fuentes is chicken and waffles. Bruh, that's what we need to do. Just need to walk around Chicago. King Solidus says, debate me. Okay. DM me on Twitter and or Discord and tell me what you want to talk about. All right. Anyways.
You've been at the pinnacle of the controlled opposition YouTube scene for 10 years. I've been banned from everything and blacklisted and lied about and persecuted. Has the mainstream conversation in this entire country moved closer to me or to you? Who's frustrated? Who's banging their head against the wall, demanding that people listen? I don't have to do it because everybody already hears me. Everybody already hears me. I'm getting millions of views on Instagram. My clips are blowing up on Twitter. I have the cult-like following. I have the most.
Yeah, because you say crazy shit and most of the population is dumb as hell. That dude, the appeal ad populum, okay? Oh, tons of people listen to me. This is something that Adam Friended from the Sitch and Adam show did. He's like, well, I got 1,500 people in chat and 1,000 of them agree with me. And I'm like, yeah, 1,000 people from your fucking chat are idiots. They're dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't research anything. They don't pay attention to anything. They just listen to you, and you're dumb. So it's like a fallacy, the appeal ad populum. I don't care if your position is popular. Most people are stupid. Nobody in my chat is stupid. Everybody in my chat has 3,000 IQ. Everybody in my chat is fucking brilliant. But your chat, small PP energy, very dumb, low IQ. I already did on the Coming Woke Alliance. Okay. Well, DM me, bro, and we'll set it up. Diggy Boy says, oh, fudge, I want to debate Connor, but I don't know on what. Yeah, figure out a topic first, because if we're just going to agree the whole time, that's bad content. Yeah, Sacred Snow. I've been banned. I'm better than you because I violate TOS. Yeah, it's like, dude, no, that's not what that means.
Moment. Everybody's moving towards my position on Jews and Israel. And that's why you are damage control. You are meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel talking about Qatari bots and anti-Semitism and pleading with your audience, please hear me. They're obsessed with Israel. And everybody knows that's what's going on. So that's what I have to say about all that. I mean, it is the biggest.
We're breaking 90 cross-platform right now, which is pretty good numbers for me. I'm not going to lie. Like the stream, super chat if you got it, follow if you're not following, all that kind of stuff. And then if you're actually enjoying the content, if you're watching me almost have a heart attack or a stroke, type in Valor Media Network into your search bar, and you can find me there 4 days a week. I'm generally speaking live from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. I'm live on Valor Media Network Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'm live on my home channel on Tuesdays. So if you're enjoying the content, you want to hang out during the workday, then come on over to Valor Media Network. Has Connor just quit smoking? No, I'm lifting weights. I quit smoking in 2013. Adam destroyed you and you soyed out. Billy Koo, you fucking pussy. Oh, man, hold on. This is my channel, so I'm going to get a little crazy with it. Commander Haircut, do not email Ken about my bad language. Adam destroyed you? On what, Billy, you fucking idiot? On what? Adam was such a fucking pussy. He couldn't even articulate his own worldview for 40 fucking minutes. And then when he finally did, it's exactly what I said it was. What did he destroy me on, you fucking dumbass? You 80 IQ dipshit. Please tell me a point that he made. Please tell me a point that he made that was coherent at all, that had any kind of relevance to the conversation at hand, which he was a soy boy fucking pussy retard. Sorry, Commander Haircut. Sorry for using an ableist slur. But please tell me a fucking point that he made that was relevant. Oh, you worked with Democrats in order to defeat Trump. And my point was he's a fucking pussy who wouldn't own his position. Please tell me. I'll wait, Billy Koo. We'll hold up a show of 92 people for you to articulate a coherent point that Adam Friended made. Please tell me. I'm waiting. I'm tumescent. I'm turgid. I'm enthusiastic. Please tell me. Waiting on you, Billy Koo. I'll give you 60 seconds. Come on, buddy. We believe in you. All of chat believes in you. Billy Koo. Everybody type in Billy Koo. 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 You got it, brother. Come on. Come up with a talking point. Go for it. Come on, I believe in you. Have I seen Glenn Greenwald's videos? Unfortunately, yes. Coup, C-O-O. That's how we spell it. It's 10:55. When it hits 10:56, we'll move on. I'm literally just going to stare at chat, waiting for Billy Coup to make a point. Billy Poop, Billy Poop, Billy Poop, Billy Poo, Billy Poo, Billy Poo, Billy Poo, Billy Poo. What's going on? Billy Coup, a Sitch and Adam person, came in and said, oh, Adam Friend had destroyed you. So now we're waiting for him to remember what he destroyed me on. Come on, brother. Oh, no, it's 10:56. We ran out of time. Ran out of time, brother. Don't worry. You can still post it in chat because you're so stupid that like I would still be wildly entertained. Even if it takes you 10 minutes to figure out what you're going to say, I'll still read it. Dumbass. Sorry, I'm very grumpy today, so did I miss something? No, yeah, okay. So what you missed was Billy Coup says Adam Friend had destroyed you, and I said, on what? Please tell me. And he refused to tell me because he's as pusillanimous as his fucking daddy is. Do shoulder press hurt your elbows too, or are my bones and bloodline weak? Everything hurts, brother. Everything hurts. He pumped you out. On what, you loser? You nerd? Mike? On what? Tell me. Didn't? What? You take 2 minutes to write the word didn't? Mike similarly has no point. You guys suck. Dude, if I had you as audience members, everyone else, Kyle, Commander Haircut, Sacred Snow, Dickie Boy, Harmonic Fox, Grassroots Hegemon, Wowman 542, Zoe, Sacred Snow, they all blow you out of the fucking water as far as an audience member. You suck. You're terrible. All you do is you go from the sidelines and you go, ha 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 ha, but you have nothing. You have nothing. Didn't watch it, but I can tell you did by your reaction. I can see your blood pressure rising. You raise my blood pressure, you fucking nerd. Shut up. Fucking losers. All right. Anyways, how do you really feel? I feel like these guys suck. You suck and you're losers. Go home. Anyways, back to the content.
Biggest gaslighting. I mean, if you watch the show every night, maybe you can start to understand my insanity. Maybe you can start to understand my headspace. This is the intense gaslighting that I've been dealing with for 10 years. Think about it. For 8 years, the better part of 8, almost 9 years, I have been going live every single night and talking about how Israel controls this government. They were behind Iraq, Syria. They're pushing us to a war with Iran. I've been talking about this for nearly a decade. It's happening now. It's literally happening as we speak. They're trying to get us into this war with Iran. They're trying to get Harvard to teach a curriculum dictated by the federal government that isn't critical of Israel. The ADL tried to destroy Twitter because people were being anti-Semitic on the platform. AIPAC overthrew 2 very high-level progressive congressmen on the Democratic side because they voted against 4 and 8. Ben Shapiro says if we don't give Israel everything they need, we're going to nuke everybody. And everybody is realizing what happened. Everybody is starting to get ready.
Ice Koozie says, are you not covering the last night's episode of Palantir? Probably not, man. Only because it's like, we all agree. Palantir is AI that's going to do crazy stuff with the U.S. military. It's not great for them to be compiling lists on American information. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm lifting, so it's hard to talk when my blood pressure's up. But Palantir bad. And then also they're obviously going to feed all that information to murder robots and drone swarms, which is going to be very hard to resist on an individual level. So, yeah. Sten Franklin says, I started watching you through Sitch and Adam. Now I haven't watched them since 2023. Ugh, I'm sorry, buddy. I hope that didn't have anything to do with me. I still like Sitch. I still think Sitch is like an insightful commentary person. I just think Adam's pusillanimous, and I get it. Those were a couple of groypers, Mike, and I'm assuming they're groypers. I'm not saying they're actually groypers. I have no idea. Groypers just, they typically know how to shit stir, right? The one thing that they're good at is the one thing they're good at is trolling, right? So Billy says, the guy who started it all says, didn't wash it. I can just tell by you getting frustrated. So that's like troll shit, right? And then Mike just says, Jew, right? So I'm assuming they're just trolls and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So no offense. Have fun being trolls. Enjoy yourselves. Yeah. Anyways.
Red pilled. And you would think that someone like myself would be practically anointed at that point. He said it first. He said it for 10 years. He was on the money. He got canceled for it. Instead, they come up with these novel new takes where they say, well, he's just obsessed with Israel. And it's pure gaslighting, pure manipulation.
I'll fight you, Nick.
Of the American public. And the reason that I think someone like a Candace Owens is tolerated is because they are not as sharp as me. If you've been watching the show with any regularity, I mean, we are at the cutting edge of all of it. I don't think these other people are that sharp. They could talk about the liberty and they could talk a good deal about the Bolsheviks and, make these comparisons, show the double standards. But who is on the cutting edge talking about this South Africa gambit that they ran recently, where now they're going to talk about white genocide conveniently while South Africa is accusing Israel of genocide? Who's going to talk about this complete lie? They say that Trump is shutting down international students into America, and that's based, when in reality, that is a form of warfare against Harvard, so they will pass anti-Semitism laws. I mean, who else is on the cutting edge like that?
So when it comes to white genocide, okay, I parrot South African white genocide talking points. Farm murders, South Africa statistics. So because oftentimes it's easy to find racist black South Africans who are talking shit about white people and how they want to dispossess them of property and they want to kick them out of the country or kill them or anything like that. But when we looked at the actual statistics of white murders on farms, it was like 40 per year. It was something crazy small. So hold on, let's take a look at it. AI overview. Overall murders in the 23-24 financial year, South Africa experienced a high murder rate with over 27,000 murders averaging 75 per day. One source reports 436 murders on farms, plots, small holdings, and other agricultural land in 2024, based on police figures, which include both white and black farm workers. Another source referencing data from April indicated 36 murders were connected to farms, with only 7 victims being farmers. More specific police statistics, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, the point, actually, let's read this one real quick. South Africa's latest crime stats debunk claims that a genocide is being committed against white people, the country's police minister has said. The widely discredited allegation was amplified by President Trump. Trump told Ramaphosa that white farmers in South Africa were being killed and persecuted. On Friday, South African police minister, blah, blah, blah. The white victims lived on a farm, while the black people who were killed comprised 2 farm owners, 2 employees, and 1 manager. I'm looking for stats, though. We looked it up in an earlier stream, and it was like 40 per year, right? So let's just roll with that because we could spend some time looking up the farm murders, but white population of South Africa. And by the way, it's not that the genocidal rhetoric isn't horrifying. Having like a mainstream politician saying that your entire ethnic group should get genocided is horrifying and repulsive. But in 2022, the white population in South Africa numbered 4,500,000, making up approximately 7.3% of the total population. So if you're talking about, let's just say it's 40 white farmers per year. Let's do 4,500,000 divide by 40. At this rate, it's going to take 112,000 years in order to genocide the white population of South Africa. So let's just say that, like, it's fucked up. The racist murders, how people are tortured, how people are killed, it's all fucked up. But we're not at a genocide yet, right? Just because there's people with genocidal rhetoric, shit, Nick Fuentes has genocidal rhetoric sometimes. So I don't know. Yeah, I would have to see more stats for me to buy into it. Leonidas Vazouris, hello, my Greek friend, says, I think Adam's reflexive against any criticism on the right because the left had been lying so egregiously for so long. Of course, that's not an excuse to not be critical, but I can see why. Sure, but it's time for him to grow up. You know, that my frustration with the Sitch and Adams show is that, you know, my frustration with them is that they were always truth first, right? They always said, we're all about truth here. We're team truth. We don't care about where the truth comes from as long as we're sticking to the truth. They said that all the time. And yet Adam pretends that he doesn't understand sanitizing rhetoric. He doesn't understand political dynamics. He doesn't understand sweeping. He doesn't understand propaganda. He doesn't understand any of that kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, you're either dumb or you're a useful idiot or you're a propagandist. Which one is it? Sean Kaplan says, you replaced Destiny for my daily dose of content. Well, Sean, that's a high honor. Thank you for watching the channel. I really do appreciate it. I will say, though, the good news is that I'm in the morning, he's in the afternoon. So if you're ever fiending for some Destiny content, then you can just roll over to Destiny when we're done. I hate to give it to him, but he's pretty sharp. No, Nick is sharp. That's the problem. The problem is that he's sharp. He's smart. Whatever 4690 says, Connor, white farmers live in fortresses. You must have watched Lauren's movie. I'm going to say that I'm a bad fan of Lauren Southern. I haven't watched it. Connor, what was the reaction to that whole South Africa and Trump White House fiasco? You know, good for Trump for calling out racist murders, but again, do we have bigger fish to fry? Probably. The reason, actually, let me go a little bit stronger. The reason why, even though Trump, I think, is an idiot, the reason why I'm perfectly okay with him calling out racist murders against whites in South Africa is because I don't want the South African government to get used to pandering to extremists the way that we have extremists in the United States of America, like Hassan Piker. The way that I call out anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic verbiage in the far left that leads to terrorist attacks and deaths is because I don't want that behavior to be normalized. And I feel the same way about anti-white rhetoric in South Africa. So if Trump calling them out puts the South African government in check, even if it's an exaggerated problem, that's still a good thing. Trump voters are getting what they voted for. Many of them, the non-hardcore supporters, just didn't look into what they were voting for, Reckless Ambivalence says, and Reckless Ambivalence is 100% correct. 40 is a guess. Find facts. You find facts. I'm running a show. Go Google me how many white farmers are dying. What the F? Connor is still pressed by Adam months later? No, I'm not pressed. Adam isn't here. He's not pressing me. I'm saying Adam's a fucking idiot. Is that pressed? Is it pressed to call somebody a fucking idiot? Not pressed. Connor got Connor in the morning, Destiny in the afternoon, then Pisco at night. Hey, man, we're bringing you a full docket of content. So anyways, pressed. Pressed means that Adam is coming after me and I'm cracking under the pressure. That's what pressed means. So no, fuck that guy. Fucking moron. Sorry for cussing so much. Sorry, Commander Haircut. Sorry, Mom. I'm in a cantankerous mood. I'm very grumpy today. Let's keep lifting.
So I think that's
all right. Actually, you know what? I'm done with this. He doesn't like Tim Pool. Tim Pool doesn't call out all the edgy shit. You know, Nick Fuentes is better. He's a 3,000 IQ genius. Blah 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 blah. We got it. Okay, thanks, Nick. Now, the reason why I wanted to watch this is because Jordan Peterson got pressed on Jubilee. We actually did break that down. That's content that we take. Yeah, he's not pressed. He's depressed. Ain't that the truth, man? All right, but we had Jordan Peterson go on to Jubilee. We had this guy press Jordan Peterson on whether or not he's actually a Christian. Nick's reacting to it. Let's keep the Nick Fuentes content train rolling. Pressed means stressed out, upset, annoyed. Well, I'll tell you, I'm upset and annoyed. So if you want to use it that way, use it that way.
big story I want to cover tonight, it has to do with what is happening in the conservative discourse, in the conservative conversation. And this is just one in a series of related developments that has happened lately.
Sorry, let's do an intro. My boss, my editor, he asked that I break up content into shorter segments for more easy consumption. Hi, guys. My name is Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I'm a never Trump Republican, and I love breaking down alternative media and the political landscape. We've already been watching a gentleman by the name of Nick the Knife Fuentes. He's a Christian nationalist, a traditionalist, a race realist. He's basically a part of the far right. He's got tens of thousands of young men who watch his content because, let's face it, he's charismatic, funny, and intelligent. That being said, I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong about a ton of things, and therefore I like breaking down his content and kind of rebutting him from my perspective. He's going to be reviewing, or at least giving his thoughts on the Jordan Peterson debate on Jubilee recently. And so as a result, we're going to watch that. We're going to watch his breakdown. I'm going to pause every few minutes and share my thoughts. Hope you're down for the ride. Like, share, subscribe, dislike, all that YouTube nonsense. Super chats if you got them. Let's go.
And there's a very distinct pattern that is emerging. Here's what I'm talking about. Jordan Peterson goes on Jubilee this weekend, and this should be a home run. That's the format. It's meant to be a home run. Jubilee does this format where they invite a conservative, typically it's a conservative, and they'll debate 20 liberals, and they change the theme and they change the topic, but that's the general formula, is they'll bring somebody in from the right, like Charlie Kirk, like Ben Shapiro. Jordan Peterson was the latest. They put him in the hot seat in the middle, and they do sort of a round robin 20-on-1, pause, do a 20-on-1 battle royale debate. And it's supposed to be favored towards the conservative, because you have to consider that these conservatives, they do these intramural debates for a living. They do this professionally. They travel the country. They go from campus to campus at universities and even elsewhere on their show. And this is what they do. They debate the left. And that's all they debate. Those are the only people they debate. They accept no challenges from their right. These center-right conservatives that are mainstream, that are on the platforms, they accept no challenges. They don't even acknowledge that such a challenge exists on their right. They don't.
Nick, I'll talk to you. It literally, if you get bored, I'll talk to you, okay? I'm going to save this. COVID, BLM, Ukraine war, Israel, Holocaust, Israel caused 9/11, Israel caused all MENA conflicts, white genocide. This is the, all the things that Tim. Did I call him Tim earlier? Nick. These are all the things that Nick claims to be like more accurate than everyone else on, and I disagree, so I'm happy to fight him on his own stream. So we'll do that. And hold on, let me catch up with conservative liberalism real quick, because we were talking about South Africa and farm attacks earlier. And so conservative liberalism says 4,308 farm attacks and about 806 homicides since 2010 in South Africa. And he says that they don't track the stats by race. Well, if we just assume all of the farmers are white, which is not accurate, there are black farmers and there are black farmers who got killed. But let's just assume that they're all white. That's 53 people a year. 53 people a year out of a population of 4 million is not genocide. Now, if you want to say that there's genocidal rhetoric coming out of the South African government, if you want to say the ANC says crazy shit, if you want to say that some of these murders involve torture and the killing of children, which is horrific, if you want to say it's enabled by parts of the government, I'll be with you all day. Okay, if you want to talk about they're threatening to expropriate the land from white farmers for some level of economic justice and it's motivated by communism, okay, I understand. I think it's messed up. It's worthy of criticism. It's worthy of political pressure. But is it a genocide? The answer is no. Possum Nation says, Connor, don't forget about Straight Rage. She's one of the only leftists I can listen to. Very smart and good faith. Erin's a cool girl. She DM'd me talking to me about how TPUSA was going to have a meeting in June. I don't think that I'm going to be able to make it, but she gave me a heads up, basically just checking in and saying, hey, I heard you went full time. Maybe you want to go to a TPUSA event. I was like, sick. And then what was the other thing though? I think it's just a little weird in the Destiny sphere because Erin was obviously friends with Pixie, Pixie and Destiny are beefing and doing the sex lawsuit right now. And so I don't know if Aaron is still friends with Pixie. I don't know if they've reconciled. I don't know if she's more friends with Steven. I have no idea. I have no idea what that sphere of Destiny's former orbit is doing. Bud123 says, I love my coffee and grill hotism in the morning. Well, sick. I'm happy that I can help with your content. Jav Tondes says, Destiny streams are boring. A bunch of staring quietly at the screen and arguing with his chat about frickin' Factorio. Still gets 10K views, so he's doing something correct. Maybe that's what I need to do. I need to be more boring, but just be live for 10 hours a day. Did you see Nick debate versus Dean Withers? No, but that sounds like fire content, too strong for socializing. I'm going to add that to the docket. Nick Fuentes versus Dean Withers? I hope it's more than 5 minutes. Nick Fuentes versus Dean Withers. That sounds like good content right there. All right, I have to use the restroom in a second. Nick had a debate with Destiny on Russia and Ukraine, and Nick knifed him. You might get cooked. That's fine. But no offense, Justin. Groypers think that Nick does well every single time, even when he's wrong, right? So even when he's wrong, they're like, oh, yeah, Nick did so good. But that's just because he talks confidently. Your last debate with Nick turned into a discussion. Yeah, but, you know, I'm kind of like a chill person. I try to pursue truth over dunks. So, but this one probably will not be as chill because instead of being like the vagaries of liberal versus Christian empire, that's what the conversation was last time. This time we'll actually have things to debate. COVID, BLM, Ukraine war, Israel, Holocaust, Israel caused 9/11, Israel caused all MENA conflicts, white genocide. I think just predicting what's going to happen, okay? I could go hard on COVID because I think he's just fucking wrong. I could go a little bit less hard on BLM and Steelman what's going on BLM, and I think I can get him to concede to reality. For the Ukraine war, I think I could go pretty hard. For Israel, Holocaust, Israel caused 9/11, Israel caused MENA conflicts, white genocide, what would actually happen is his side would take it as a W, but I would force him to discuss the actual nuance of these topics where he's not just doing the, oh, Israel actually did 9/11 bullshit. He's like, no. Israel caused 9/11 through like geopolitically involving us with the United States. And so it's going to move from the conspiracy theorist fodder to actual reality. That would be my prediction. And then because he would still seem like sane and confident, the Groypers would be like, oh my God, Nick won, Nick W, Nick W, Nick W, Nick W. But realistically, I think I could get him to move my direction. So Reckless Ambivalence says, buddy of mine whose politics are similar to mine and is on the city council here says that at a bar. So I recently watched a video from a guy named Nick Fuentes the other day. Anyone know anything about him? So I drunkenly tried to explain to him a small group of otherwise drunk people while also not starting some shit. Yeah, I can schizophrenically explain alternative media politics to you. I could explain that to you. Counterpoints, has Zan gotten back to you? No, he hasn't. I DM'd him. He didn't DM me back. So anyways, Pixie and Destiny beefing is a good way to put it. That's the best way for me to put it without digging into it. South Africa has approximately 300 attacks a year. A farm is being attacked virtually every day for 15 years. Okay, 50 people a year is not a genocide. So anyways, shill and then back into the content, but I do need to use the restroom, okay? Even though I desperately want to watch all of this content. So my apologies if I have to rewind it if he's saying something interesting. But like the stream if you haven't liked the stream. Follow if you're not following. Become a YouTube member or a subscriber on Twitch if you're not already. Super chats are never required, but always appreciated. I parasocially love you. I'm going to let Nick handle you for a minute while I use the restroom. Melon Conley, who did super chat a few streams ago, and I parasocially love you for those super chats. How much do you think Nick actually believes what he's saying versus just saying what the crazy stuff he can get away with? I think he believes 90% of what he says. I think he believes 90% of what he says. Anyways, I will be back in 120 seconds, but Nick is going to entertain you in the meantime. Hassan, share, react. Ready, go.
You don't acknowledge the existence of a far right. And they exclusively will debate amateur, very young, frequently college students on the culture war issues, on transgenders, abortion, on immigration, on the economy. It's really favored for the conservative. That's why I say it should be a home run. So this weekend, they did another one of these videos. They brought in Jordan Peterson, Now, bear in mind, Jordan Peterson is, I think, north of 70 years old. He's in his 60s or 70s. He has a PhD. He's a university professor with decades of experience with the clinical practice. He's a psychologist, and he's debating 20 liberal kids. He's debating, and some of them were adults. They're amateur adults that they probably pulled out of a hat. But for the most part, these are college kids. These are random Redditors. And it's really a sorry group. If you look at the video and you look at who's there, I by no means am a fan or admirer of the people that are debating Peterson. Each one is more flabby and kind of sad than the last one. They have the usual suspects, these guys like this Parker character who's been doing the videos, and he does a lot of the debates with Charlie Kirk and others. So this should be a home run grand slam. Who is going to win? A 70-year-old PhD conservative who has spent the last 10 years, this is his career, doing speeches and Q&A sessions and debates at the pinnacle of conservative media. It's been going on for a decade. Or on the other side, 20 amateur college student 20-somethings with an education from Google and ChatGPT.
Do I need to do this? Okay. I wasn't even here. And I left when he was talking shit about the college students, and then I came back and he was still talking shit about college students. Do I need to do a 5-minute preamble to every segment where I'm like, I'm a genius. Everyone's an idiot. I'm the smartest guy alive. Everyone's afraid to talk to me. They can't handle my highfalutin ideas. They can't handle just how much of a base debate god I am. So they pretend like I don't exist. Like, is that what I need to do? Is that the secret to success? Because I swear to God, I saw this guy, doing it. And then I also saw, who is it? There was that Coke addict who was popular for a little bit. John Zerka, right? John Zerka did that, where I watched a John Zerka stream for like 10 minutes because I was like, how does this guy have such crazy numbers, but his content sucks? And his content for the 10 minutes I watched it was like, yeah, I'm a base god. Nobody will talk to me because I'm so fucking awesome. All these people, dude, I just own them. I just own them all the time. I'm the best debater there is. It's like, dude, why? Why is this content? You're not saying anything except for how cool you are. How is that content? Come on, Nick. Some of them studied religion for their career. That Jubilee atheist team was actually surprisingly strong. Dude, I thought they did great. He's really rambling. No, spend 5 minutes gassing up the 3K IQ chat. True. That's what I need to do. You need to mix in a lot of more insults than based in conspiracy in your intros. True. If you watch the Dean versus Nick debate live, I will donate. You are the best at combating Nick, but still wrong. I'll watch it. I don't know if we have time for it today, but I'll watch it for sure, Justin. Like, I would say literally, like, come back tomorrow and what will make you money? Some people will believe it. Isn't that the truth? Hob Tonda says, Counterpoints. You think you could do a psychological profile on your average groiper? Every time I always try end up tacking them to a conspiratorial mindset and straight up narcissistic sociopathy. I'm not smart enough for that. I would need to actually study psychology for more than just, I don't know, one class in high school. Please don't start smelling your own farts. I won't. I've been watching Nick for 8 years. Cool. Justin, if you're on the wrong side of Putin, then of course you'll always win the argument. It just depends if you prefer Western hegemony or Ruski. It's that simple. Thank you, Possum. That's actually the difference. Zoe says, yes, that's a key to success for sure. Lol, Zerka, I haven't thought about him yet for a while. Yeah, he probably died of a cocaine addiction. Oddly enough, this is what Styx used to do. It's who brought me to the left in 2018. That's funny. That is funny. All right. Okay, if he keeps talking about himself for 90 seconds, I'm going to skip ahead, okay? He's got 1 minute and 13 seconds to advance the content. If he doesn't advance it, I'm going to fast forward 5 minutes.
Who's going to win? Well, it wouldn't surprise you to learn that Jordan Peterson got annihilated.
No, he didn't. There was one guy who got a good clip. Jordan Peterson didn't do well, but he didn't get annihilated.
But it was interesting how he got annihilated, because I actually don't find a lot of the arguments from the liberal atheists. I didn't find any of that particularly compelling. It's a lot of the usual stuff that you hear from atheists. They point out the so-called atrocities in the Old Testament, slavery, war, genocide, that sort of thing. And they deploy a lot of the usual sophistry, logical traps, things like that. Nothing new, nothing terribly impressive. But there was one kid that got up to debate Jordan Peterson and just unraveled his entire existence. And the line of questioning...
No, he didn't, Nick. That's way too generous to the kid. The kid was going for a dunk.
Started with some liberal atheist kid, and he looked like a kid. I don't know how old he was, but he looked like he might have been late teens, early 20s. So this kid comes up to Jordan Peterson and starts interrogating him about whether Catholics worship Mary. Honestly, I don't know where he was going with that. That was a line of questioning.
It was because the Catholic worship of Mary, which, by the way, is it depends on which Catholic you talk to. But there's this concept. This is what my father told me. I didn't dig into it because it made so little sense that I didn't want to further alienate myself from the Catholic Church by trying to understand the mysteries of Mary. So what my father told me is that there is a Catholic doctrine, which is a part of the church. And if you're like a Catholic, like you're not a Creaster Catholic, you're not somebody who only goes on Christmas and Easter, then you're supposed to ponder the mysteries of the Catholic Church. In one of the mysteries of the Catholic Church is that Mary is not just the mother of Jesus, but also the mother of God. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, that was my reaction too, but I've just accepted that there's some things that I'm not going to understand. And so there's some weird Catholic belief that Mary pre-exists existence itself, and that she's like Jordan Peterson talks about this sometimes, where she's like the chaotic void through which like God is born or some shit. It's really like some Warhammer 40K mythological like crazy shit. And then also people believe that like through Mary, Mary can be like an intercessor to God, where you can pray to Mary and Mary can hear your prayers, similar to the way that God can allegedly hear prayer, and that she can petition God on your behalf and all that kind of shit. This is part of the reason why people have accused Catholics of being pagans, is because they have like a polytheist perspective on Mary, which is kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. Leonidas Vasuris, our favorite Greek, says, I find it really funny when Nick is calling someone a kid, even when they are 2 years younger than him. That's not true. Nick's getting old. He's about to be 30. He's about to have an existential crisis. I'm really looking forward to it. Conservative liberalism says, I'm not retroactively correcting myself. If I didn't make myself clear, that's on me, but I have clear eyes on this. I didn't see the original comment, so my apology. Mellon Conley says, no one unraveled JP's existence in that debate. Peterson just didn't do a good job at establishing what he actually stood for. Unimpressive, but not a total L. Disappointing, but also banal. I forget how to pronounce that word. Yeah, that kid got a good clip. Good for him. Good for him for getting a good clip, because he called out Peterson on being effectively an agnostic wrapped up in Christian mythology. Saints can intercede as well. Exactly. Hearshot says Christians believe Christ is God. Yeah, I understand. Man, God. I get it. I get it. Sacred Snow says, I stopped following Catholicism when I was like 13, so maybe I'm misremembering, but I think that you got it wrong. The difference is that Mary is the mother of Jesus, Immaculate Conception and whatnot. Nope, it goes further than that. There's supposed to be some high order Catholic mystery that Mary is not just the mother of Christ, she's also the mother of God. Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. Mary birthed him, so she is the mother of God. I understand that, but it's supposed to go deeper than that for somehow. Somehow it goes deeper than that. I forget what it is. All right. It's banal. I needed that. Sacred Snow. I needed that. Listen, like, I know it's funny. I know it's funny for me to get worked up and crazy and lash out at chat and all that kind of stuff. I know that makes for good content, but every now and then having a silly butt joke is perfect for my mental health. So it's banal, but I think banal is better. We're going to pronounce it banal for now on. All right. I'm going to do, this is going to be a little bit more involved. I'm going to be doing like a chest press. So I'm not going to be able to respond as quickly, but I'm going to let Nick talk. You don't get 40K ideology without some wide ideologies. Agreed. Jesus is fully human and fully divine in Catholic doctrine. Yes. Worshiping Jesus as God is a sin to God. The church is hopelessly lost. All right. Well, anyways. All right. Let's let Nick keep talking. I'm going to do a chest press. We'll listen.
And Jordan Peterson, you could tell very quickly, was out of his depth. He does not know the Catholic theology. And I don't blame him. He's never professed to be a Catholic. He has some interest in Catholicism. But Jordan Peterson very quickly was struggling to define his terms, couldn't really keep up. And eventually he gives up and says, well, why are you asking me this? And the kid said, well, you are a Christian, are you not? And Peterson said, well, I've never said that. And the kid said, well, I thought I was here debating a Christian. And Peterson said, well, no, you're debating someone. And he said, well, I think maybe you're in the wrong video. This is supposed to be one Christian versus 20 atheists. And Peterson comes back and says, oh, well, you're really something. And the kid says, well, you're really nothing because you're obviously not a Christian. And Peterson says, uncle, and surrenders. He says, I'm done with this guy. I don't want to debate him anymore. And I saw that exchange, and it's now going viral. Maybe you've seen it. I tweeted about it a few times, and some people said they hadn't seen it yet, but it's been making the rounds on Instagram, TikTok. It's blowing up on Twitter. And that, even though it wasn't necessarily a substantive defeat, the guy didn't defeat Peterson's arguments. I don't think he was a particularly impressive debater. In that one line, and he heated up, and then that was the knockout punch. He totally unraveled Peterson's entire grift and his entire existence, because does that not explain really what Peterson has been doing this entire time? And when I say this entire time, I mean, you go back 10 years, you go back 15 years, you read his book, Maps of Meaning, you watch his college lecture series, you watch his Bible lecture series, you listen to him on his show, on his podcast, at his talks. And that's really what it is. It's a whole lot of nothing.
Fuck you. King Solidus says, are you Christian? No. I'll answer it more simply than Jordan Peterson. I'm not Christian in the sense that I believe in the Trinity and I believe that Christ is the incarnation of God on earth. However, I am a deist. I believe in God. And so I actually took some notes on this. Peterson says that lived Christianity, not the belief, not the articulation, but it's voluntary upward self-sacrifice in order to build the kingdom of heaven on earth, and that the cosmos itself is rooted in voluntary self-sacrifice. That's what he believes it means to live a Christian life. And so I live a Christian life or I try to, obviously I fail, but I try to live as much of a Christian life as I possibly can while not literally believing in the Trinity and the resurrection. And so I don't agree with Nick's assessment at all. I understand why he's philosophically opposed to Jordan Peterson, but if I had to articulate a series of really complex topics really quickly, I'm going to do so now. I'm going to go full screen and I'm going to do so now. Let's go full screen. Let's try to articulate this really quickly, okay? Jordan Peterson is like a mythological dude, okay? So he studied Jung and Campbell and all the people who are trying to resurrect religion into a modern relevance. Because if you talk to atheists and agnostics, they effectively believe that this is all Iron Age mythology and Iron Age morality, and we don't have to pay attention to it at all. And I think that Jordan Peterson correctly points out that there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of mythological meaning wrapped up into the stories of the Bible, and therefore they are worth preserving and they are worth understanding. And so Jordan Peterson is not talking about nothing. He's talking about some of the deepest possible concepts that you can have within religion and spirituality, which is, what is the fundamental creative force of the universe? Is it ordered? Can we understand it? What is our bargain with eternity? is like he doesn't really necessarily believe in the afterlife or whatever, but is there something rooted within the Christian message that is so necessary for humanity to understand that it's worth spreading even if you don't believe in it literally? And my answer to all those things is like, yes, 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 yes. I love Jungian psychology. I love the mythology of the Bible. I love understanding the historical context in which all of these stories were told. I love understanding like 10,000 years of human psychology and morality. And also, all the people who say that this morality is not relevant to the modern era, they're ignoramuses, is the best way that I can say it. You think that you're smart and special in the way that you conduct your life? You're not. There were pre-Christian Greeks talking about the philosophical and spiritual issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And there were Jews, like there were, you know, Mosaic Jews who lived 2,000 to 3,000 years ago who have shit to say that is worth knowing in your current life. So dismissing Jordan Peterson as talking about none of this, I find more value in the lessons of Peterson than I do in dogmatic, literalist Christian preachers. So Nick dismissing this all as like, well, Jordan Peterson is actually nothing. And he talks about all these mythological vagaries without believing in the precepts of Christianity. Therefore, he's actually like a sophist piece of shit talking about nothing. This either mean, I don't think Nick is so stupid that he can't understand what's going on. I think that he's trying to do a virtue signal where he's saying because he's a literalist, because he believes in the actual resurrection of Christ, he's a better Christian than Jordan Peterson will ever be. That's what I think is going on. Chat, please don't let my faulty memory and prepubescent lack of interest in my family's faith derail chat. No, derail chat. I have seen ghosts. Does that count as religious? No, not unless you believe something specific about that and, you know, the world. Reckless ambivalence. So kid was delusional and didn't argue any point, and Peterson's time was limited, so he wasn't going to waste it. That was unraveling his existence. Yeah, he's going too far. Jordan Peterson. Dude, you guys, no offense, J-Man, but like, I don't know if you're just fucking around, but like, Groyper's being like, oh, he likes Israel, therefore he's a traitor to the white race. It's so tired, dude. It's so tired. Like, grow up. Are you 15 or are you 30? Are you Nick's age? If you're Nick's age, you need to grow the fuck up. So Jordan Peterson is an agnostic cultural Christian? Yeah, absolutely. King Solidus says, right on. I thought you were more religious. Did this change? No, I've always been a deist. I still, King Solidus, I don't know if I'm conveying sufficiently what I believe. So I'm actually going to go through these bullet points because half of these bullet points are relevant. I try to defer to the power of the universe. The universe is infinitely bigger than I, infinitely more powerful. I try to defer to the power of the universe. And I try to negotiate with external worship and purpose. I try to find purpose outside of myself. That's as opposed to worshiping power and yourself. I try to live a Christian life, even if I'm not a literalist. I think Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a powerful psychological concept. I also believe in, like, I think Aristotelian virtue, ethics is not like the end all be all of human virtue, but I think it's a good starting point, right? And then the 3 pillars of biblical masculinity. We went over this in a Jordan Peterson lecture or debate. You have to be tough enough to fight predators. You have to be resourceful enough to survive in the wild. And you have to be capable of nurturing and defending the vulnerable. I think this is wildly important. I think if every man followed biblical masculinity, the world would be an infinitely better place. Another thing that he identified in that same debate was, how do you identify monsters in the world? And it's because the diet of monsters is the vulnerable. I think that's a brilliant insight for how you want to figure out who's a good person, who's a bad person. Let's see if there's anything else. That's all I have for like notes that I for specifically like Petersonian stuff, but I like the Bible. I think it's dope. There's a reason why my kid, who I have not raised to be specifically religious, he loves the story of David and Goliath. He will go out of his way whenever he hears like a biblical or Veggie Tales or audiobook or cartoon book, whenever he sees the story of David and Goliath, he reads the story of David and Goliath. That is through no encouragement of mine. He actually just enjoys biblical stories. Grassroots says, I believe in involuntary sacrifice of others. Come on, man. I'm trying to be serious. What the fuck? Oh, it isn't working too great for Haiti. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Also, isn't Lord Miles from the Sargon crew talking about getting a bunch of private military volunteers to go to Haiti and take over the island and turn it into a Christian nationalist paradise? Isn't that what he's talking about? Justin says, Peterson is basically saying Christianity is not real, but we should follow it because it's pragmatically moral. Kind of. Wowman542 says, isn't JBP's whole project a response to the meaning crisis of the death of God that plagues modern first world countries? Yep. That's Nietzsche. That's why he talks about Nietzsche and Jung. He views like Nietzsche as like the death of God and Jung as an attempt to resurrect him. Peterson himself said that he exists on the border. He is a fence sitter. Well, as any true centrist. Also, I hope no one thinks I'm a Nick supporter. It's all good. J-Man says, I'm Groiper adjacent, found Nick through Vince. I'm too old to be a Groiper. Okay, good. What was the other thing? Who's Vince, dude? I heard Nick Fuentes mention Vince earlier, and I'm curious who that is. Melon Conley says, this is why JP discourages me. I appreciate his attempt to explain the symbolic significance of religion, but he does a messier job at it over multiple lectures, debates than Connor did in 3 minutes. Well, that's good. Conservatism says, oh, piss off. I'm not typing this stuff for a 7th time. You're insufferable at Commander Haircut. Commander Haircut says, so then explain what you actually meant when you argue against the impact of COVID by bringing up the most hospitalizations and comorbidities. He's saying fat people die, okay? He's saying fat people and people with diabetes and old people die. Justin says, you are white. Someone in your ancestry was Catholic. God bless you and your family. Oh, dude, my dad's Catholic. My dad's devout Catholic. It doesn't even matter that he didn't understand the mystery of Mary. My mom is a heathen Protestant, unfortunately, but my dad is like super Catholic. Not surprised, even though you're not Christian, you adopt many of its principles. True. Billy Koo says, I hope Nick's 30-year-old crisis involves him smoking weed, hanging out with chicks, and listening to music. That's all these incels need. Dang, Billy Koo, you are all over the place. You're just trolling me to piss me off, and then you're telling groipers to smoke pot and get laid? What is your deal? You are a tricky beast. Vincent James, the Red Elephant. He does a show called Backlash now. Interesting. Let me take a note on that. That might be worth checking out. Let me write that down. Vincent James Backlash / Red Elephant. Okay. All right. Anyways, Wowman says we need a formal voice chat debate between Commander Haircut and conservative liberalism moderated by Counterpoints. Yeah, we could do that. That'd be fun. Anyways, I'm going to lift some more. I'm going to let Nick talk. I did want to explain that as much as I could. I parasocially love you. Thank you to Grassroots for the 5 memberships and for the donation. Thank you to somebody else did a donation, but it didn't pop up in my restream feed. I forget what it was. I swear to God, it was somebody did a membership or a super chat. If I forget who you are, my apologies, but parasocial love to the other person that did a super chat or a membership or whatever. And then quick shill, like the stream, engage in chat. We have a crazy amount of super funny, super weird, super smart people in chat. They're having fun. I think I'm having fun, even though I seem pissy. Follow if you're not following, subscribe if you're not subscribed, super chat if you got it. If you don't, just engage with the VODs. Then there was one more thing. There's 100 people, believe it or not. There's 100 people cross-platform live with us today. If you're enjoying the live stream and you want to hang out with me as we do this style of content, I'm live another 4 hours a day or 4 days a week. I'm live on the Valor Media Network. So type in Valor, VALOR, Media, MEDIA, Network, common spelling. I am live Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 2:30, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And I'm sorry for stretching in front of you. I know it's annoying, but I'm live there 5 days a week. So if you're having a good time today, come have a good time the rest of the week. So how can you be a race trader if you never swore loyalty to it? I don't know. 3,000 IQ. Everyone here is 3,000 IQ. Anyways, all right, let's go.
It's a whole lot of people attend the talks, watch the lectures, buy the books, watch the podcast, as Christians, looking for the truth in the Christian tradition. Nobody's looking to convert to Judaism. Nobody's looking to convert and become a rabbi and go to Israel. For all that Peterson talks about Judeo-Christianity and the monotheistic ethics of the West and all that kind of stuff, all the obfuscation and equivocation, it is a largely conservative, younger, right-wing, Republican partisan audience that is looking for a more profound expression of Christianity than maybe what they got from their mega church pastor, maybe what they got from their parents, their religious education, which might have been lacking. They're looking for profundity. They're looking for insight. They're looking for depth inside the Christian tradition. And what they find is a lot of yapping, a lot of nothing. When you attend these
It's not nothing.
Jordan Peterson lectures, you find if you're really paying attention and if you're really reading between the lines, this man is not a Christian. He's never claimed to be a Christian. He's never professed belief in the historical Jesus Christ, the person of Jesus Christ, the divinity of Jesus Christ, or even the reality of Scripture at all, or even God for that matter.
Yeah, isn't that kind of embarrassing, though, to Christians, that someone who is not a Christian literalist is better at explaining the profundity of your faith, as Nick would say, than mega churches, preachers, priests, and even Nick Fuentes himself?
And he's played this game for 10 years where he does a good job of maybe implying that he believes these things, implying that he's a Christian or believes in God or something like that, but really doesn't. And then when he's challenged on whether he believes in these things, he plays a semantic game where he breaks down the entire equation and says, well, what does it mean to believe? What does it mean to ask a question? You say, are you a Christian? Well, what does "are" mean? What does "you" mean? What am I? What is a Christian? And then...
Hold up, but this is... I don't want to say it's a misunderstanding because I think Nick is smart enough to understand what JBP said. If you watch the entire debate, though, Jordan Peterson says that he believes that voluntary upward self-sacrifice in order to build the kingdom of heaven on earth is true, and he tries to live that way. And then he thinks that rooted in the cosmos, it's on a natural level. Living beings understand that voluntary self-sacrifice makes the world better for themselves and for the creatures around them. They understand that, life is dangerous and disgusting and muddy and bloody. And in order to survive, sometimes you have to do destructive, repugnant, morally abhorrent things in order to survive. But ultimately, if you want to create a better world, you have to take the energy that you were gifted by the creator of the universe, and you have to take it and you have to sacrifice it for the world outside of yourself. He thinks that, JBP thinks that that is rooted in nature. It's rooted psychologically. It's rooted at the deepest levels of existence itself. And so to me, that is infinitely more important to believe that and to live that value than to express some vague belief in a Jewish carpenter 2,000 years ago. Because believing that a Jewish carpenter was the incarnation of God 2,000 years ago doesn't mean that you voluntarily upward self-sacrifice in order to make the world a better place. And it does not mean that you believe that that truth is rooted in reality itself. And so for me, I would take 1 billion Jordan Petersons who don't know whether or not they believe in the literal incarnation of Christ, but choose to live in a Christian manner. I would have infinitely less problems with the church if that was its character. Justin says they don't invite Catholic apologists. It could be true that there's smart Catholic apologists out there, but also when you start talking about the logic of Christian apologia. Oftentimes it gets quite boring for secularists because they start from a foundation that the secularists already don't agree to. That God has communicated his will to humanity, which seems to be like one of the first steps in Christian apologist logic. So K Soko says, I think it's fair to say JBP is not a Christian. I give that to Nick. Yeah. I don't think he's a Christian literalist. You could call him a cultural Christian agnostic. I think that's true. Trent Horn would have wrecked that Jubilee debate. Interesting. What does mean? Zoe says, him grilling Tim the Tool and Jordan Steak and Potatoes Peterson is hard for me to stand up for them. Don't worry, I'll do it for you. JVP has done this a few times. He suddenly doesn't understand what words mean. Sure. I feel like I admitted it while I was watching that video as a fan of Peterson. I think he didn't want to jump on grenades that would piss off his Christian conservative audience. I agree with that, which is funny because he has so many lectures talking about how like the truth is so important and how you should just say brave truths. But I'm sure he's done some like utilitarian calculus where not only will his self-interest be harmed, but the world will become a less good place if he starts professing his lack of belief in the Trinity. So I'm sure he has some like utilitarian political calculus where he's not going to lie, but he will lie through omission. Anyways.
After breaking down and deconstructing the sentence in a semantic way, then he'll shore up any doubt or anybody that doesn't believe in what he's saying with these theatrical flourishes that are meant to sound really ominous. He'll say something like, well, that's a really tough thing, bucko. Well, and that's a pretty big question, eh? And we're all supposed to be floored. We're all supposed to be dumbstruck. I mean, and maybe the first time you've ever heard that, it works. Maybe the first time you've ever seen that pattern play out, he will wax poetically for 30 minutes about the gravity of a Bible story, and you're hooked. And the interviewer says, are you even a Christian? Do you believe in God? Maybe you think there's something to the deconstruction, and then maybe you drop it all together when he says, well, that's a pretty big question, eh? That's a pretty big question, eh, bucko? Why don't you go clean your room? You might go, oh, this guy's really deep. But we've seen this act. We've seen this episode before. It's a rerun. If you're my age, I'm 26. So I was
you old bitch.
A college-aged, young, conservative, white man looking.
Okay. Commander Haircut. Leave conservative liberalism alone. Okay. He's asked you a couple of times. You guys are my kids. All right. So leave each other alone. Conservative liberalism said, I already explained myself. I don't want to explain myself further. You keep saying you need to explain yourself because you said something stupid. Take a break. Take a lap.
For answers when Peterson got his start at Toronto University way back in 2016. I've grown up with that. I've grown up watching that. It's literally been 10 years, and we've never really gotten any further than that. We've seen that answer before. We've seen that story before. And now we want to know, are you a Christian? Do you believe in God? And still, Peterson, not only does he not want to answer the question, he doesn't think you're entitled to an answer. This kid asks him point blank, are you a Christian? He says, well, I don't have to tell you. Well, yeah, you kind of do. If for 10 years you are selling yourself as a prophet, which is, I mean, let's be honest. The way that he carries himself, the way that he markets himself and presents himself, it is like a prophet. He is acting like a modern day prophet with a novel fusion of psychotherapy and this Jungian tradition and some kind of Gnostic reinterpretation of the Bible stories. He has marketed himself as something like a prophet, some kind of novel pastor. Yes, at this point in time, we do deserve to know, we are entitled to know, what do you actually believe? Who actually are you? Young men have invited you into their lives to give them deeply personal advice for 10 years. Teenagers, college students, other young men, young adults have invited him into their lives with his self-help, self-authorship suite that he sells on his website, with his Bible talks, with the endless products that he sells. And they have looked to him as a rabbi, as a therapist, as a counselor, as a pastor, as a priest. And these people want to know, who are you?
You already know, don't you? If you're not an idiot. Sorry, lifting weights knocks the breath out of me a little bit. I encourage you to get some dumbbells and to lift at home while you're hanging out if you work from home. Well, QC says, good morning, Connor in chat. I would be curious to know what the leftist atheists think about Fuentes using them as his fodder and weapon in taking down JBP. They would probably be repulsed, but I think they would also just be happy that the right was fighting amongst itself, because as much as you might want to say that, oh, Nick has authoritarian economic worldviews and therefore he's a socialist, like James Lindsay would say some shit like that, right? Nah, he's not. He's right-wing. Just own it. K. Soko says, it's easy, Connor. If he believes the faith, he would have said so. Agreed. That's why I think that Nick is just being a dick about it. Justin says, you just summed up why Peterson shouldn't be taken seriously. Why? Why? If he speaks to the profundity of the religion, profoundness, if he speaks to the profoundness of the religion, if he articulates biblical stories better than most preachers, if he is able to root this in a psychological analysis and a mythological analysis that enriches the religion and makes it more palatable, not just for Christians, but also for agnostics, what's the problem? What's the problem? Too scared to pick a side? I don't think he's too scared to pick a side. I think he thinks that picking a side would be worse for the world. Wrecked Ambivalence says, Peterson is an expert in one field. He like Noam Chomsky and a bunch of others who are experts in specific fields, suffer from people expecting them to have answers for everything and benefiting financially from trying. I'm still a fan of Peterson. I think he's cringe. I think he does cringe stuff, but I think the good far outweighs the bad. And even if he was actually to be like, hey, you know what, Nick? You know what, Nick? I'm going to do a terrible impression, but I'm going to go full screen for it. You know what, Nick? It turns out that the root of all evil in the Western world actually is the state of Israel. And I don't know, I went to the Holocaust Museum and it was not very compelling. So I wonder, why wood doors? And maybe it was 300,000. I actually think that a lot of what you say could be true. I don't know if it's true. I don't know what the word true means in this context, but maybe Israel is ultimately evil. I don't know. Like, if he can't, even if you don't enjoy that, I very much enjoy doing it. just imagining Jordan Peterson relabeling himself as a groiper, I think would be hysterical. So if Jordan Peterson becomes a groiper overnight, I'm just gonna be like, okay, well, everything that he did up until 2025 was all right. I mean, maybe the Houthis are correct, Maybe it is a genocide. Maybe we should be shooting missiles into random commercial vessels. I don't know. What is a commercial vessel anyways? Conserve says, final thought, not an alternative. I'm talking about walking and chewing bubblegum at the same time. Sorry if I was unclear. Okay, all right. Commander Haircut, I parasocially love you for being here and being an active part of the community. Conserve liberalism, I parasocially love you for being an active part of the community. Please shake hands, take a lap. You guys can fight another day. Possum Nation says, I have to say Nick is funny, bad guy though. Clean up your room, bucko. Yeah. Yep. Commander Haircut says, yeah, they probably shouldn't have been going to some dude on the internet to be their therapist and rabbi. But that's the point. There's a crisis of loneliness within the world where young men don't feel like they have father figures who are sufficient in order to support them in their spiritual and moral journeys through life. So they're going to turn to online figures. So your options are Destiny, who I like, good guy. I'm going to be hanging out with him later in the week. But personal life is a bit dog shit. And he kind of did some fucked up things in 2022. and he's a rabid liberal and sometimes progressive, and he says psychotic shit on the internet. That's one of your options. Other option, Andrew Tate, sex trafficker, rapist, piece of shit, fuck him. Or Nick Fuentes, Christian nationalist, hates Israel. Would you rather have Jordan Peterson, the meandering, agnostic, Jungian, mystic priest? He's right wing, but you get what I'm saying. I think the world would be a better place if people were Peterson fans. Nick is jealous of JBP because he wants young men to invite him into their lives. True. We're not socialists. We are Catholic. I understand. But Justin, I was being a bit facetious if that didn't come across. James Lindsay unironically thinks that whenever the government does something, that's socialism. And so if Nick believes that the government should do some things, then he's going to call him a socialist. Razzle Smasher, not Razzle Cherry. Sad to see that we don't have Razzle Cherry today. He's normally our resident groiper. Razzle Smasher says, as your resident liberal atheist, I do indeed like the infighting. I think Peterson is a ridiculous kook, but Fuentes is way, way, way worse. There you go. I think JBP needs to practice what he preaches. I don't think he's making progress preaching a religion he doesn't believe in. Okay. Holy shit, Jordan Peterson is Yoda. Okay. I'm catching up with chat, and it looks like you guys had as much fun. You guys had as much fun as I did. Yeah, I love how your JP is a fusion dance between Kermit and Yoda. That wasn't even on purpose. I didn't know I was channeling Yoda. I was trying to channel JBP, and I knew that Kermit snuck in there a little bit. K-Soko says, I love a lot of JBP, but he needs to stop with, I'm going to argue for the church. They don't need you to do that. They have people who dedicate their lives. Yeah, I don't think he should argue for the church. I think he should argue for deism and mythological reverence. Azurai says, whenever I hear JBB talk, I actually hear and envision Kermit the Frog. We all do. We all do, brother. Justin, the problem is the Catholic apologists could do the same thing Peterson does, but they can't be bought. Peterson works for Ben Shapiro, a Jewish man, but promulgates Christianity, conflict of interest. There's a, we'll talk about it another day, because if we talk about it now, we'll be here for another 20 minutes. But there is medieval Christian anti-Semitism that lasted until the early 20th century. And in the wake of the Holocaust, they rewrote the narrative for Judeo-Christian narrative that like Judaism is the nesting egg from which Christianity springs, right? And so that reduced hostility from Christians towards Jews. So it's a competing historical narrative. The competing anti-Semitic Christian narrative is that the covenant with the Jews was broken when they rejected Christ, and therefore the Christians are the true inheritors of God's covenant on earth, and therefore Judaism is like a vestigial religion that no longer needs to exist, and therefore if those people are persecuted or killed, it's not a big deal. Whereas the Judeo-Christian mythology says that the religion wouldn't even exist in the first place without Jews, so even if Jews are incorrect about the Messiah, we should still tolerate and support them because without them, we wouldn't have a religion at all. Buffering for anybody else? Well, not for me, King. Didn't Tate just get arrested? No, he got charged in the UK for rape, but I don't think that he's been in the UK, so he's not getting arrested. I would rather have Vermin Supreme. Rub each other's bellies. No, JBP is basically Yoda with Kermit's voice. Yeah. All right. You should be put in the algorithm. You should take us on spot. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Synagogue of Satan. You guys are going hard. Anyways, so let's let Nick continue. He's having fun. We're having fun, right? Like, share, subscribe, dislike, super chat. Let's go.
And they have looked to him as a rabbi, as a therapist, as a counselor, as a pastor, as a priest. And these people want to know, who are you? What do you believe? Do you even believe in God? Do you even believe in what you're saying? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? And cut the bullshit. Don't give me some 30-minute answer explaining what it means to believe in anything. You know what we mean. Do you believe that Christ lived as a man, but also as God? Do you believe that he died on the cross, descended into hell, freed the captives, appeared again to his disciples, founded the church, and ascended into heaven, seated at the right hand of God? Do you believe in that? Let's start there. Do you believe in original sin? Do you believe in baptism? Do you believe in these things that you imply that you do, that you have implied that you believe for the past 10 years? And he says, well, I don't have to tell you.
Jordan Peterson's answer, if he would just stand on business, is I don't believe it literally. I believe it mythologically. I think it's true in the sense that it conveys morals to humanity, but no. I think I think Jesus was a dude who got crucified. I don't know if he was the incarnation of God.
You any of that. You're not here to debate a Christian. You're here to debate what exactly? What exactly are we here to debate? What exactly are we doing here? And this guy, it was so masterful, so clean. And Peterson, all he could express was exasperation. Oh, well, you're a really mean guy. You're really something, huh? And the guy said, yeah, well, you're really nothing. And it's right. The 20 liberal.
I'm about to go use the restroom and grab some water again. What is the wrong with Asman? He encouraged his audience to be neats the other day. He literally said, American society isn't for you, so don't engage in employment, education, or training. That's the problem with Asman. He can have whatever gamer bro takes he wants on progressives infiltrating media. He can have whatever takes about Hassan being a terrorist apologist. I don't give a shit about that. That's perfectly fine. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I care about is him encouraging his audience to be nasty, Nurglite, gross, fucking cultists who instead of actually engaging with life, just play video games and don't shower. That's the fucking problem. A multimillionaire who lucked out in life telling his young audience to sit at home and pick lint out of their belly button while they play Xbox and eat chicken nuggies. Fuck that. Fuck that is what I have to say to that. Jonah Boy says, the Tates get charged for rape every few months. When are they going to get the needle already? Whenever somebody actually incarcerates them. Romania was doing it, but then the Trump admin intervened on their behalf, right? Yeah, do not let Asmongold be your life coach. You will fuck up your life. Anyways, I'm going to grab some water. I'll be right back.
Liberal atheists, yeah, they are really something. They're smug. They're pretentious. They're ignorant. They are insufferable. They're irritating. They're nasty. Yeah, I mean, they are really something. I don't like those guys. I don't like Parker. I don't like Destiny and that whole scene, the liberal debate bros. They're not the pinnacle of knowledge or wisdom. I don't think anybody believes that. I don't think anybody looks at some 22-year-old schlub with those round glasses and frizzy hair talking about Bayesian probability or Bayesian analysis and says, this is a philosopher. Nobody believes that. Yeah, they are really something, but at least they're something. At least they are something. They could tell you what they are. At least they will tell you what they are. They are what they are. It isn't this elaborate creation. It isn't this elaborate artificial construction or pretense. So it's true. The kid is something. You are nothing. And
Hello, friends. I'm sorry. I kick internet connection. Internet connection go down. I kick it when I go get water. My apologies. Let us add Nick Fuentes back to stream. And let us continue. Can you hear me now? Hold on, I'm here. I'm here. Am I here? Am I back? Chat, are we back? I thought you ran out like my dad. What is it? Are we back? Can you guys hear me? Can you see me? Yes or no? We were never gone. Guys, I think a Russian hacked the stream. I always knew Cotter was a Russian KGB agent. Well, I'm assuming you guys are referring to my accent. That doesn't sound like the Cotter I know. Okay, are we back? Answer the question. I understand. Can hear and see. Okay, thank you. They sent a Russian body double. Okay, cool. Cool. We are so back. All right. Anyways. Let's. Sorry to the Mossad taking me out. Okay, my apologies. So, actually, I want to ask you guys something real quick. Okay, I understand we might lose a few souls because I did that real quick, but I want to ask you guys a question. So, what I find interesting about Nick is it seems like for some parts of his content, he's reacting where he's breaking stuff down, but a disproportionate amount of the content that I end up watching of his ends up being extemporaneous rants about different topics for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, which I do find impressive to a certain degree because he has a topic, he has the outline, he talks extemporaneously, which means that he doesn't have a script. And it gets like a little repetitive where he's hyping himself up or he's repeating the same points or this, that, the other, but he's carrying a show through his charisma and through his intelligence and his rhetorical ability. And what I notice in my own chat is that when I'm watching the content, I might tick up a little bit and then I'll tick down when I start talking. So I'll lose 4 or 5 people or whatever when I'm not just doing React Andy 5-minute stuff. But I also notice that that's a similar trend too, where if I talk for a long time, I'll tick up a little bit and then I'll tick down a little bit. So it seems like there's almost like 2 competing audiences within the content. There's the React Andys who just want to watch the content with me as a vehicle, and they just want me to say something every now and then, but they don't really want me to go on 10-minute rants. And then it seems like there's some people who are here for me who like my 10-minute rants, and the content is just a vehicle for them to get the 10-minute rants. And so I wonder, I'm kind of asking you, I'm putting it out to chat, should we do both styles of content where we're doing React Andy stuff, but maybe for 30 minutes, 45 minutes per show, it's just me carrying a single topic. And so basically, like, I watch content, I write down the ideas and the bullet points that I want to talk about. And then instead of us reacting to it, I just highlight what I think is important and I go on the deeper rants for it. So, just give me some feedback in chat. Let me know what you think is like whether or not we should segment the content that way so we get both audiences, right? But also there can be like a more hardcore individual audience. I don't know. Abaddon says, it's okay, I'm here, Connor. It's going to be all right. Thank you. Nick has the gift of gab. He does. I'm here for the Connor OnlyFans content. Let's go. Harmonic says, yes. I am here for you. When you cover Nick, I want to understand different worldviews. Cool. I do think Jordan Peterson is vacuous and he's using a pragmatic theory of truth. Agreed, Blade 88. Why not mix it up? I mean, why not, right? So Possum says, yes. John says, deeper rants, man. Go for it, King. Nah, do rants. Okay. Yeah, well, John, and we were on my end, we're at 94 across platform, and we broke 100 a few times. So, anyways, I'm going to let Nick get back into it, but maybe we'll do that. I'll think about that. I'll start scripting some outlines where if there's something that really pops off that I'm really passionate about that I can go on an extemporaneous rant by myself on, then I'll make that content too. That way, we're not always reliant on other people. So, more than 100 men versus a guerrilla debate. We've already done that like half a dozen times. Conserve says, format is a weird one. Honestly, I think having some structure would allow you to check more boxes. The news segment in the beginning was great, in my opinion. You could have a contemporaneous rant segment too. We can go back to the news, Conserve, at some point, but I'm not going to lie. Number one, it's not as fun for me. Number two, the metrics are reduced compared to the other styles of content. Number three, how do I phrase this? Oftentimes the news can be repetitive. And so every single day, oftentimes we're covering the same story, like limited developments in the same story, because, you know, it's moved an inch, not a mile, right? Mineral says, to be honest, you do you, man. It's usually best when the creator do what they feel like. Yeah, but if we do what we feel like, then I'm just going to start playing Warhammer. You know what I'm saying? So Nick is no match for the grill hottest. True. Commander Haircut says, I'm more likely to dip whenever it's just reaching to schizos being schizos because I already understand they're schizos. True. The Constitution is a fundamental part of our country. If you don't like it, then you're anti-American. Agreed. Trump's tariffs were shot down by the courts. President Trump cannot get anything done. He's worthless. Give me a monarch dictator. Well, to be honest, I think another court intervened. So anyways, the news segments may have suffered from being upfront with inconsistent start times. Well, dude, it's 9:30 to 2:30, bro. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Because when we first started, I was doing it in the afternoons and then I moved to the mornings. Anyways, let's stop. Let's get back into the content. My apologies. I just wanted to float that your way because I was thinking, I do think it's impressive that Nick carries a show on his shoulders. I know he does React Andy content as well, but I do think it's cool that even if he's repetitive, he goes on a 40-minute rant and that gets decent metrics. I think that's impressive. Christian Blair says, been in U.S. government meetings all week. Singular rant content would be based, assuming it keeps the views. Okay, cool. Warhammer stream time for lore videos? Nah, we're going to segregate that. Doing the show the way you want makes it good. You can't please all the people. Sure. All right, anyways, Nick is saying that Jordan Peterson is vacuous. Some people in chat are saying Jordan Peterson is vacuous. I agree that Jordan Peterson can be verbose, and sometimes it can take him 10 to 20 minutes to arrive at a point. But what I like about when I used to consume Jordan Peterson stuff is I would listen for 20 minutes, but then he would say something that would fundamentally change the way that I perceived reality. As an example, one of the ones that was just like, boom, like it was just like, it punched me right between the eyes, was your life, your sense of purpose correlates with exactly how much responsibility you take on. I thought that was brilliant. And it intuitively makes sense, right? That when you take care of your parents, when you take care of an animal like a dog or a cat, when you take care of your community, when you take on responsibilities at work, et cetera, your life seems, it can be more challenging and more stressful, and not everybody can deal with the challenges and stress of taking on all of those responsibilities. But I'm going to tell you, every single crazy rich experience that I've had in my life, I've had an incredible amount of responsibility. And so keeping that formula in my mind, that I can enrich my life by voluntarily taking on more and more responsibility, it basically gives you a formula where it's like, well, I don't have any sense of purpose. Okay, adopt a dog. I got a little bit of purpose, but it's not enough. Okay, take on responsibilities with your family. I got a little bit, I'm feeling pretty responsible and pretty purposeful, but I'm also miserable. Okay, get a better job, right? And so on and so forth. And so you can kind of dial in your sense of stress and purpose, taking on responsibility. So Jen K says, blah, I've missed almost all of Fuentes. Guess I'll have to watch the VOD later. Well, number one, that's great because we'll have a VOD viewer. Number two, don't worry. We're only halfway through the middle segments. So we still got 1.5 segments left. Anyways, all right, I've yapped. Let's let Nick yap.
8 bros, 20 liberal semantic pedants who are going to get you on every little thing. I mean, that they're masters of the gotcha. There's nowhere to run. You're in a fluorescently lit warehouse with 20 liberal debate bros, and your entire life is about to be hydraulic pressed by facts and logic, and you can't fucking cry either. You can't cry your way out of this one. This isn't Piers Morgan. And, this is just
that's mean,
like I
but
said
that's
earlier,
funny.
This is a pattern that I've noticed because there was another mask off moment that happened just last week. Charlie Kirk went to Cambridge University and did another round robin debate with all the liberal students over there at Oxford. And, it was a little bit even-handed. You could say that Charlie Kirk scored some points and the students scored some points. But just like the Jubilee video with Jordan Peterson, there was a viral clip from the Charlie Kirk debate at Cambridge where he was questioned on the genocide in Gaza. And there was this young student, and he was a little bit all over the place. He had this chaotic energy. He's jumping up and down, clearly autistic or something going on there. But Charlie Kirk tried to do a gotcha and said, well, do you know about the genocide in Myanmar? Do you know about the civil war in Sudan? And the kid said, yeah, I know, because I follow world events. He said, and you are selling out America. You will be looked back on in history as totally corrupt because you, in effect, have sold out to Israel. And the room blew up in applause, standing ovation, and the clip went super viral. And Charlie Kirk was standing there like an idiot. The kid just walked off, mic drop. And I saw the Charlie Kirk clip. I saw the Jordan Peterson clip. And what's interesting is that the crux, their weakness in both cases is their hypocrisy. Charlie Kirk and Jordan Peterson are two extremely arrogant, extremely unlikable, and fundamentally dishonest, two-faced grifters. That's really what conservatism is. I don't
agree with this at all, but I'll let him yap.
think anyone identifies as a conservative anymore. What does that even mean? I'm a nationalist. I'm a Catholic. I'm a white nationalist. That means something. I believe that this is a white country. We know what white means. It means European. It means blood. It means genetics. It means a distinct cluster of genes, of genetic expression.
Holy shit. He's so fucked. Seriously, he's convincing you that the Titanic is the sexiest boat around. I'm going to take some notes.
And it means a distinct group of countries, a distinct ancestry, history, tangible and real and visible and recognizable. I believe in the Catholic Church. Once again, distinct, real, by blood, in some sense, the blood of Christ. A line of succession that goes back over 2,000 years, and agree, disagree, believe in whiteness, believe in Christ, or don't. But I believe in something. I believe in something real and tangible and something ancient. I believe in something concrete in reality. What is a conservative? What does that mean? Well, it's really liberalism, but it's classical liberalism. It's the set of ideas. It's the Constitution. It's so what? It's paper?
Hold on. I don't want to respond. I don't want to respond too early. Well, I want to give him a little bit more rope.
It's a set of ideas. It's a set of abstractions, principles. And at this point, it's not even that. Conservatism is an ideology of convenience for a set of donors inside the capitalist class. You have this accumulation of wealth in our society. You have billionaires acting as oligarchs, using their ownership over certain industries, using the capital and private wealth they have accumulated to manipulate the intelligentsia, academia, media, and politics. And what conservatism is, all it describes is a set of ideas, it's a set of perspectives or attitudes that serve as a foundation or a background. It's a self-contained worldview, a matrix to support the interests of a set of those oligarchs, of a small portion of those political interests from the wealthy. That's all it is. And so when Jordan Peterson and Charlie Kirk get killed in a debate like that, when they get blown out by some liberal idiot at a college, that doesn't mean that right-wingers are wrong and left-wingers are right. It means that the conservative grift is collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. And there's something remarkable that has happened, which is that 10 years ago, the conservative ideology was completely out of step with what right-wing Americans actually felt. Right-wing Americans are actually much closer to me in their bones, and they always have been, than they've ever been to John McCain or Mitt Romney or any of these Republicans or any conservatives. It's only in the era of social media that someone like myself or someone like Trump or someone like Tucker has given voice, has breathed what the people have felt for a long time. And that is why we're getting a much more hardcore, a much different flavor of right wing. It just so happened to have coincided with when people could vote with their voice on social media that this has arisen. It just so happens that
okay, I gotta pause it because he's narrativizing a ton of this, and I don't agree with 80% of it. So let's break down what he said, and I think this is probably going to be one of my best breakdowns of the day. Okay, so I think that Nick has evolved. Okay, when I talked to him a few years ago, and when I think it was at the College of Idaho. He had I think it was a quote from Buchanan, where race isn't everything, but it's not nothing. And so what he would say back then was that he would accept Hispanic, Black groypers. I think we even have a Black groyper in chat. He would accept them, but effectively he wanted like a segregationist attitude to be accepted even amongst like Black and Hispanic groypers. Hispanics go hang out amongst each other. You know, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. And then same thing with, Black folk go hang out with themselves. They do their own thing. And we can all kind of tolerate each other as, fellow travelers within a traditionalist movement. And so I think he's hardened in his, exclusively pro-European tribalist ethic. Then same thing with like Christian nationalism. So we asked a question that I'm going to answer, which is, what is conservatism? And conservatism is very specifically, I understand that I am almost alone in my assessment, but I'm telling you that this is the root of the ideology. Conservatism is a political perspective created by Edmund Burke during the French Revolution. And what was happening was he saw that the Christian monarchs of Europe were getting ripped down by the quote unquote internal contradictions of the current system. And so there was these rabid revolutionaries, the progressives of their time, the Jacobins and the Enlightenment revolutionaries, who wanted to institute secular governance and do away with the king. As a matter of fact, let's go full screen. They wanted to do away with the king. They wanted to totally revolutionize society. They wanted to completely change the way that governance worked. And so what Burke said is that, well, the revolutionaries are incorrect because they want to do away with all institution and they want to start from scratch. And the chaos that they have brought into the world is worse than the brittle institutions of which they criticized. But, he said, the brittle institutions, the monarchy, the church, the way that they operated is what gave the revolutionaries the fuel to the fire that allowed them to seize power in the first place. And so we need a new way of thinking about politics. And so within conservatism, as articulated by Edmund Burke, what you do is you exist with a default to the traditions of the day. You still believe in the church. You still believe in the monarch. You still believe in law enforcement. You still believe in the military. You still believe in all the institutions as they presently exist, because institutions are codified wisdom that have survived over decades, if not centuries, if not millennia. Okay? But what you do is you allow liberals and progressives to criticize the institutions as they exist, and then you criticize their criticism, and you let the good ideas be incorporated, and you let the bad ideas die by the wayside. As an example, with BLM, is universal body cameras for law enforcement a good idea, even though it largely emanated from the left? Yes, universal body cameras is a good idea that came from the left. Is defund the police an idea that died because of how crazy the left got? Absolutely. And so let defund the police as an idea die. That is conservatism in practice. And what happens is conservatives, if they follow a Burkean format for analysis of politics, is they get accused of being liberals or progressives who are doing the speed limit. Edmund Burke, if he heard that quote and he understood it, he would say yes. So let me move to the next bullet point. So it's paper, it's ideas, it's propositions. That's what Nick asks. My counter argument would be that Christianity as it presently exists and the way in which it spread was through paper. Christianity is a series of propositions. It's a proposition that God incarnated onto reality and then gave us his moral blueprint. That is a proposition. That is a claim that is oftentimes written down on paper. He can say that he believes it literally, but guess what? I believe in conservatism literally. I believe it in it actually. I believe that it's a pragmatic way in which to govern, and governance is real. Power is real. And so if governance and power is real, and conservatism is an ideology that I sincerely believe, then in the same way, I would argue that Christianity is a proposition. I would also argue that whiteness is a proposition. It's real in the sense that there are people from Europe who share similar genetic whatever, and it's real in that sense. But Europeans don't think in the classification of white. They think in the classification of ethnos. They think in terms of English or French or Portuguese or Spanish or Italian. They don't think of themselves as white, right? So that's a different proposition. So the very criticism that he believes is a blowout of conservatism and propositional governance is in and of itself a weakness of his own position. It just sounds strong because he says it confidently. He says that it's a convenient, that conservatism as an ideological proposition and paperwork nationalism is a convenience of the rich to use as a cudgel within politics. He says that it's just rich people manipulating the proletarian to their own ends, a matrix to support the interests of the oligarchs. Excuse me. It's a small portion of the population manipulating everybody to their own ends. Conservatism is a grift that's collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. 10 years ago, it was out of step with right-wing Americans, and that groypers are more normal to the right than they are to the than neocons are, because as evidence of how many people are hardcore right-wingers who follow Christian nationalism. If we do polling on this, groypers are a subset of the population, barely worth addressing as an electoral group. Their ideas are quite powerful, but them as a demographic voting bloc is actually very small. Christian theocrats is actually a pretty small demographic. Fascists, out and out fascists, are a pretty small demographic. And so what I would say as a counter argument is that you're playing the same game. You, if given power, if you were able to instantiate a semi-fascistic Christian nationalist, white segregationist state, you would just replace the oligarchy. You would just be the new minority manipulating everybody to your own ends. And the only moral claim that they can make is that, like, well, our ends are better than your ends. Well, guess what I'm going to say? My ends are better than your ends. Fuck you. And we have more guns than you do. We have more Republicans than you do. We have more people loyal to the Constitution of the United States than you do. We have more people ready and willing to kill and die for a free society than you do. Okay? So fuck you too, is my answer to that. Anyways, I'm going to check in with chat before we go back in. Love that Nick can say what we can, but he's boring. Cool. J-Man says, I didn't see the Charlie Kirk clip. It was the Cambridge, I think. Nick Fuentes is not arrogant, very humble and modest. Exactly. Everything that he was saying about Charlie Kirk. Oh, they're off-putting. They're abrasive. They're arrogant. So is Nick. Professor clip, feminist clip, now random Oxford student. So yeah. So saith, I'm not even white Fuentes. Nah, he's white. He's just white Hispanic. I know that's like a mind fuck to Americans, but it's true. You can be within the Hispanic hierarchy. There's like a blood race hierarchy. And it's like, if you're African or indigenous, you're at the bottom, right? Then as you get proximity to Spanishness, like Spaniard colonial, a pure-blooded Spanish is going to be the top of the racial hierarchy in Hispanic culture. And then like a Castizo, like somebody who, I don't know, they're like a quarter indigenous or whatever, they're going to be the next one, and so on and so forth. So it's all about blood purity in reference to proximity to Spanishness. So I almost guarantee you Nick the Knife Fuentes is probably pure-blooded Spanish. And the only reason, if I said the shit that Nick said, my mom would walk into this room and grab me by the fucking ear, drag me to the sink, and wash out my mouth with soap. She would fucking hit me for the shit that Nick Fuentes says. So the only thing that I can assume is that Nick's mom is a fucking racist. That's all I can assume. All I can assume is that Nick's mom and dad were like, yeah, Spanish people are better than blacks and Hispanics, other like lower Hispanics. Blacks are better, or excuse me, Spanish are better than indigenous people. Indigenous are better than black folk. And then as a result, you can treat them like shit. And we should segregate ourselves from other people. I can only believe that these are beliefs from his parents. Gen X says, wow, I'm 42 minutes behind. And the concept of an ethical, by biblical standards, Christ-like conservative non-Christian is blowing my mind, Connor, but I guess it explains why you aren't MAGA. Yeah. Blade 88 says, Counterpoints, are you familiar with analytic philosophy? No, but feel free to share in chat. Fable says, Nick is actually correct here when he claims to have a backing for his beliefs and that the backing comes from history in some way. An ISIS member might recruit by saying that Islam is correct. Yeah, sure. It's white ISIS, white Sharia. The only thing that can unite our differences is Christ. Okay. Good luck with that. Connor, and break from the church on politics. Don't forget that part of being a liberal. Yep. To conserve Israel. Sure. You guys are being edgy boys. Not good PR for the blacks. Okay. Sorry. We worship our creator. Me too. You lost me. Explain how I lost you. No, we exclusively see ourselves as the white race, no one else. Yeah, it's propositional. Yeah. Groypers have less political power than the leftists do. Yes. That's theology. I'm talking politics. You guys are saying really short, abbreviated sentences, so I'm not really you're not tracking what I'm saying, but I'm not tracking what you're saying. Something politics is for power and all that jazz, probably. Conservative liberalism says you should do a rant on Thomas Paine versus Edmund Burke. I'd be curious to see where you actually differ with Paine, seeing as how he rooted his justification for radical change in rational principles and self-determination. Sure. I would have to read Paine, though. I've read a biography of Burke. I would need to read Paine. Trump tried to violate the Constitution and still won the popular vote. Conservatism, as you know it, is shrinking. No, people are just stupid. That to me, that G-free, that has nothing to do with anything. Trump is using democracy against itself, but I've always hated democracy. Silver Jacket Man says, I don't get white as a race. There's no such thing as white other than skin color. An Anglo-Saxon man has as much genetically in common with a Hungarian as they do with a Nubian. Maybe. I don't know if that's true. With Europeans, I'm sure there's like some like cousin shit where Europeans are more related than Nubians. Connor, no, he told the police he wasn't white. I think that was some tequila on Nick the Knife Fuentes's perspective. Svalin says, I'm not so sure. It seems like at his point, most people care more about their hatred of gays and wanting them eradicated and would gladly give up their own rights to see that happen. Nope, you're on Twitter too much. Your views on race, lol. Mexican plus gay. I will fight Nick in the octagon, based. Conservative liberalism says, I know a black curly-haired Hispanic who claims to be white Hispanic. I smile and nod for some reason. It's important to him. Yeah, that's a funny thing, too, is when it comes to Hispanics, they're so fucking racist against themselves that the Spaniards claim indigenous ancestry so they can claim to be more Aztec and more oppressed than they really are. And then the indigenous people claim to be more white because they're looking for white privilege. What's so funny about like North American racism is that like it's actually fairly understood. Like black folk, they got the one drop rule. So even if you're like a fairly light skinned black folk, I'm not saying the one drop rule is real. I'm just saying the way that it's socially categorized is that if you're like vaguely light skinned, but you also have a lot of black features, you're treated as black or maybe even mixed race, depending on how you culturally associate, right? Mixed race is almost its own category on its own. And then white is, of course, like white. Asians can be honorary whites depending on how hostile to whites they are, all that kind of stuff. We have like actually fairly coherent racial politics that everybody seems to understand pretty easily. Whereas what ends up happening in, I would say, Central and South America, because they haven't contended with race, in my opinion, nearly to the cultural degree that North America has, they have all sorts of crazy contradictions and like envy back and forth. Silver Jacket Man says, even within a country like France, you have Normans, Britons, Occitan, Franks, and Basques. Some of these have wildly different historical migrational origins. Sure, I'm a fucking Celt. Justin says, I have no ties to Africa besides my genetics. I am a black American. Good for you. Jonah Boy says, even if they did get their white ethno state, how long till they find different kinds of white people to start hating? It happens in Europe and has been for like ever. Yeah. Then it would be like Catholics versus Protestants. Then it would be Protestants versus other Protestants. Then it would be, I'm trying to think of what else, but it would be like Northern Europeans versus Mediterraneans. It's such a waste of fucking time and energy. I think that's what pisses me off the most is that Nick is smart and he roots his ideology in something that he believes to be real. It's such a fucking waste of time and energy. We're spending time fighting racists when we should be conquering Mars. Either from his parents or upper middle class liberals who his suburban ass rebelled against. Yeah. Some black fella made him uncomfortable at school once. Right. I agree. I got lost on the whole, I don't know. Some of your race views are definitely not what my lived experience has been. Feel free to expand. Feel free to expand. He told the police he wasn't a white supremacist. Obviously, Nick is white. Okay. All right. You guys are having fun. So am I. But that just took a lot of energy. G Free says, why do you think it couldn't happen here? Russians care more about splitting the world than improving the lives and infrastructure. It is impossible to believe the average new conservative is increasingly motivated by spite, revenge, power fannies, and fewer people actually care about the Constitution or Christian values or economics or any of that lamer shit. Because they're pussies, okay? G-Free, they're fucking pussies. If the Chris Nats, if the right-wingers were as hardcore as Nick Fuentes had said, they would be in running gunfights with the federal government right now. That's what they would be doing. They would be in an insurgent war. In the second that they start going insurgent, the second they start going kinetic, they lose the support of the rest of the country. So no, they're not as hardcore as they pretend to be. They're not as powerful as they pretend to be. They're not as dedicated as they pretend to be because they won't kill and die for their beliefs. And the second they go kinetic, the second that they actually start shooting cops and start shooting law enforcement, they lose the rest of the support of the rest of society. Don't let them make you believe they're more powerful than they actually are. Asians are the model minorities. Yeah, and it's because we imported the middle class and upper class of Asia, mostly. Spitting spite, not spit. Okay. All right. Anyways, back to the content. But let's just say I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by Nick's line of argumentation.
As soon as everyone got a smartphone loaded up with social media in the palm of their hands, right around 2015 and 2016, conservatism took a sharp right turn into nativism, into immigration restriction, nationalism, isolationism. Sort of picked up where we left off before World War II.
Everything that fucking sucks ass.
That's no coincidence. It took a sharp right turn the second that people could have a voice. And suddenly they started supporting people like me, people like Trump, Tucker, populism, nationalism, white nationalism, the alt-right, instead of generic conservatism. The conservatives have been playing catch up. And so Charlie Kirk and Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro.
That's what conservatism does, by the way.
People who are expressing this conservatism their whole lives, they had to catch up with the rest of us. And so they've made this concerted effort to sound more Christian, to sound more nationalistic. Charlie Kirk was at one time advocating for mass migration, gay marriage, and allegiance to Israel. That didn't play well. That didn't really work when you got Nick Fuentes on the internet, when you got even people like Tucker Carlson willing to support white nationalism in some ways. So they sort of...
Ice Koozie says, lol, they don't actually believe what they say because they aren't violent, which you've already admitted won't actually accomplish anything other than their own anguish. Ice Koozie, if I said that and I was imprecise with my words, I'm going to apologize. They're not as powerful as they pretend to be, okay? Getting millions of views on fucking TikTok because you say edgy shit doesn't translate into electoral bullshit. And then saying, being anti-Israel, what did you just say? Being anti-Israel, being tolerant of other religions, being, pro-gay marriage didn't play as well with the fucking youths on social media or whatever. You know what fucking happens when you talk shit about Israel in mainstream electoral politics? You get your dick kicked in, okay? So pretending that the entire world is following Nick the Knife Fuentes' arguments is not borne up by facts or reality. He's a socio-political pariah. When he hitched his wagon to Kanye for relevance, and then Kanye lost his fucking mind and started saying out and out Nazi shit, and then Nick started steelmanning Nazi shit, you know what fucking happened? Even the hardcore right ran away from him screaming. What's the one person that's talked to him in the past 2 years? Elijah Schaffer, another actual just fucking Nazi. And I'm not saying like Nazi to be fucking cute. I mean, the dude just talks about fucking Jews all the time. Right? So you guys pretending that like, oh, we're on the cutting edge of politics. Everybody is a secret Christian nationalist. It's like, dude, that's not borne out by stats or electoral results at all, particularly when it comes to Israel. Right? So what was the other thing? Gay marriage. 90% of conservatives don't give a fuck about gay marriage. You know what they care about? They care about trans people in bathrooms predating on kids. And it's only because conservatives won't shut the fuck up about it. The actual cases of like a child predator sneaking in, pretending to be a woman in order to diddle kids is like what, half a dozen or a dozen out of a country of 330 million over the past decade, right? It's less than one per year. And even then, you don't even have to worry about fucking trans people because they're statistically such a small minority. So you might have this like principled alarmism in which you can push people further right, but I don't view this as like organic. I think that Nick is organic. I think that I don't think that Trump is organic in the slightest. And what I mean by organic is they speak to the anxieties and the anger of the average person, and therefore they accumulate power, which is fine. That's like how populism has always worked. But they themselves are just manipulating shit to their own ends, right? Trump barely is going to get funding for the border wall. It's been his priority for a fucking decade. He's cut off immigration, but I guarantee you the second that he leaves, we're going to go back to the status quo because it's so economically beneficial. What's the other thing? His tariffs have been an absolute fucking disaster. Pretty much even like vast swaths of his own coalition have run away screaming from him in the past 90 days because of how destructive he's been to the international economy. He's just been proven wrong on Ukraine and Russia. Oh, well, I'll have that fixed before I'm even in office. No, he didn't. He's a fucking idiot. He's a fucking tool. It's just that, unfortunately, democracy, demos, means appealing to the people, and people are fucking stupid. So I get it. I'm a little grumpy. I'm a little bit more profane. I'm a little bit crazier today. But don't think that you're winning harder than you are. You know what's going to happen? In the midterms, Trump is going to get his dick kicked in, and then he's going to be a lame duck president. Then he's going to be gone, and then you're back to institutionalists. There is no one in politics right now that carries the same level of charisma or the same agenda as Trump does. Okay? Trump has the exact right personality for populist bullshit. And guess what? 90% of it is bullshit. G Free says, I'm not even talking about Groypers, white nats. I'm talking about valueless husks that only care about hurting liberalism. I think Groyper types are rare. Reality rejecting spite mongers is the problem. G Free brings up another point that reinforces my point. You think that everyone out there is like a hardcore Christian nationalist? They just want to own the libs, bro. They just want to own the libs. And the easiest way to own the libs is by saying HH while listening to Kanye West. They don't actually care about committed National Socialism. They don't care about committed Christian nationalism. They just want to trigger the libs. Justin says he was just on Hodge Twins. Two other 80 IQ fucking morons. I'm going to say an edgy joke. Commander Haircut, do not email Ken about it. Hodge Twins make me more race realist. He was just on Hodge Twins. Nick just finished an interview with Sean Kelly, who has 11 million Instagram followers. Nick has motion. Good for fucking him. He's still a social pariah. He's still an oddity. Ice Koozie says, what matters is the ideas being more and more adopted by right wing, and that's just true, not what he collabs with. Okay, good luck with that. We'll see. We'll see whether or not Christian nationalist authoritarian theocracy race realism is as relevant a decade from now as it is right now. I'll bet you $100 that it isn't. It is June 3rd, 2025. On June 3rd, 2035, I want to see you in my chat, and I want a $100 super chat if Nick the Knife Fuentes is a major player in right-wing politics. My prediction is he's still going to be a dissident asshole spreading propaganda to a few 100,000 psychos. That's my bet. Fuck Trump. Nick isn't attached to Trump. I thought we were talking about ideas. Trump is the greatest vehicle for your ideas possible. That's the funniest thing about it. You think you're going to get somebody who's as hardcore as Trump or more hardcore than Trump? Again, bet me $100. I'll see you in 2035. You're about to get fucking hardcore assaulted by normies. Normies are about to swamp you. It is so bad. You don't know what's coming. Simply Steve 2012 says, I live in Colorado. It was in Boulder at the mall when that happened, and Fox and the right-wing media are lying through their teeth about what happened. What, the guy throwing Molotov cocktails at Jews? What are you talking about? Are you going to campaign and door knock for Democrats again? If I find a good Democrat. Kai Miracle says, sup, Connor? What's up, buddy? How are you? Trump has been conquered by the Israel lobby? Yeah, you're fucked. Grassroots says, Nick is from a wealthy suburb in Chicago, and I got to say there are a lot of parents in that environment who just don't even care where their kids are. That's probably true. 80 IQ combined, says Abaddon Quad 6. Yeah. If Vance is able to reinvent himself as an institutionalist, my head is going to explode. It's going to happen, bro. It's going to happen. He's still going to play to MAGA. I'll bet you $100 in a year. How about that? We don't have to wait a decade. $100 right now. In 2028, if Vance is the front runner, he is going to skin MAGA like Hannibal Lecter. He's going to take a potato peeler to the skin of MAGA, and he's going to wear the rhetoric of MAGA in order to get elected. And then if he's elected, he's going to be a normie Republican. $100 right now. 2029. That's in what? 4 years? Whenever the election is. Let's bet that JD Vance isn't a more normie Republican than Trump, who just uses hardcore rhetoric to achieve power. Miriam Adelson donated $100 million to Trump's campaign. Yeah, you guys are fucked. Most people are Zionists. The Zionist propaganda machine is infinitely more powerful than your little sectarian movement. I'm going to stop arguing with you guys in a second, but it is interesting. Lol, Nick has been fighting with Trump and his surrogates for over a year now. Well, good for him. What's a good Democrat? Mark Kelly if he shuts up about guns. Pete Buttigieg if he wasn't gay. Right? Justin says, you were talking about Nick right now because he's relevant? No, I talk about Nick because he's funny and smart. He was irrelevant 8 years ago, and now mainstream media covers him and they say his name in Congress. Yeah, he's funny and smart. What do you want? He's a talented creator. He'll be like a Rush Limbaugh for the next decade. Vance is fake as F, crafted to the system. Vance is the epitome of fake and cringe. Ice Koozie, that's who you're voting for in 2028. So, yeah, dude. Yes, I do. Conservative liberalism. You guys are actually already calling it out before I even said it. You guys are agreeing with me. Peter Thiel, tech bros, crazy, fashy San Francisco bros. The tech right is going to co-opt the populist right, and it's going to destroy your movement. I hope you see that coming. And it's not even like a bitter thing. Like I don't hate you. Like I don't hate you. I think you're motivated by things that are stupid, and I think your prescriptions are even worse. But I don't hate you as a person. Like if you're like a conservative person who's desperate for the world to be better, I sympathize with you. I just think that your descriptions and prescriptions suck ass. Sorry, I'm getting fussy. Gen X says, the silver jacket rule, yeah, and the right are actually following the entire Nazi playbook, and even the most normie ones are crying for fascism now that calling them Nazis is merited. They're going to go where the votes are. I think this populism wave is going to burn out. I don't know about Ruben Gallegos. Is he the guy that runs Palantir? Does he have the crazy hair? Aren't necessarily against Jews, but they are against non-white races and want an authoritarian dictator. I mean, that's on Twitter and shit. All right, anyways, last chat. Then I'm going to shill. Then we're going to get back into the content. Sigurd Snow says, the problem with the Dems and guns is that DNC has made the default position gun bans equals regulation. So unless a Dem comes out and takes a rational position, they're fucked on 2A. Agreed, which is why we need to fight for it. I'm sure Vance will try to normalize himself. Yep. All right. Anyways, let's give Nick like another 5 minutes to make a point. If he makes a new point, then I'm going to keep watching. If he just repeats himself, I'm going to skip to the next segment. Grassroots for the 20. Thank you for the donation, King. So what interests me about Trump and Vance is Trump is a billionaire who wants to be a common person. Vance is a hillbilly scum like me who wants to desperately to have what Trump has. If you graph their grift, it would make an X. Yeah, they're like the intersection of grifting to a different socio-political economic class. Race nationalist right-wing policy, populism will continue to rise in Europe in reaction. Yeah, but it'll rise in reaction to Muslims, and it's going to stabilize. Like you guys think because something trends in a certain direction, it goes in that direction forever. That's not how anything works. Okay, it's like an S curve. It's like a snake crawling back and forth. You think that because right wingers are popular in Europe right now, they're going to be popular forever? No. What's going to happen is the race realist right wingers are going to get elected. They're going to stomp down on the Middle Eastern and North Africans, but they're not going to get fully deported. Then the Middle Eastern and North Africans are going to moderate. And then everybody's going to be like, oh, okay, well, I like Hafiz. I like Hafiz, the local kebab seller. So as a result, I'm actually chill with Muslims now. And then boom, you're going to have like normalcy in Europe. Multicultural normalcy in Europe when Muslims chill the fuck out. So, sorry. You guys thinking that it's going to go your way in perpetuity is cope. Yeah, exactly. Leonidas Vasura says, the far right in Greece has peaked and it's already receding again. Bro, you can't just read the politics of the day. You have to read the politics into the future. Yeah, take a look at France. Marine Le Pen was set to win. Take a look at Canada. Take a look at Canada, whatever, 4690. Marine Le Pen was set to be the most popular person in the election cycle. She has to maintain that popularity for another 5 years until she's able to run in the next election cycle. Who's to say if she's going to be relevant by then? And take a look at Canada. It was almost guaranteed to be a Pierre Poilievre conservative win. What happened? Trump was such a fucking asshole that he made conservatives look like assholes, and then Pierre lost out to a technocratic World Economic Forum Democrat. Bruh. Don't hit me. Don't hit me with I'm gonna win forever memes. We're inevitable. No, you're not. You're just another political faction fighting within a liberal hegemony. Anyways, enough fighting with chat. Let's go.
Slap that on. They slap that into the conservative rhetoric. Again, the conservative rhetoric, which is really just this ideological underpinning for financial interest, they just slapped it right on there. Oh, well, these people eat this right up. But that's not really working because the contradictions remain. Charlie Kirk can say America first. He could say America first all he wants, and he could try to sound like me and say, we need to cut foreign aid, we need to do this and that. But if somebody comes up and says, well, then why do you support Israel? He's got nothing because the contradiction has been laid bare.
No, he has like a 5-minute historical rant about how Israel is God's chosen kingdom.
The contradiction between this haphazard ad hoc embrace of the real right, real Americans, real right wingers, which he tries to appeal to by saying things that he thinks they like to hear, and what he really is, which is a spokesman for the billionaires that pay the Republican Party. And those billionaires are very pro-Israel. So you can't say America first and be America first and be a representative of the right-wing people and of the truth, but also be what you are and be paid, which is a spokesperson for these pro-Israel America Last donors. That is the crux. That is their weakness. And that's where a liberal idiot can pull at that string and unravel the entire grift. You say you're America first, but you support this genocide in Gaza and our aircraft carriers and foreign aid and all that over there. You're a traitor. You're corrupt. You've sold out our country to the highest bidder, and history will remember it that way. You've got nothing. You've got nothing. And that's not the end of the right wing. If I were in that position, if Candace Owens, if another one were in that position, they wouldn't have that problem. They would have a little thing called consistency. Because they would say, oh, I don't support that. That isn't America first, and I agree with you. Charlie Kirk can't do that. It's against his contract. And the same thing happened with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is not now was not 10 years ago, was not ever a Christian, does not believe in Jesus Christ. And although he has obfuscated that, he's never really lied about it. He has tried to conceal that. He's tried to obfuscate it with these long-winded lectures, very wordy. But in some sense, there's always been some honesty that he's not really a believing Christian, doesn't really believe in Christ. But he plays that up. He leans into that, plays into that. And the inconvenient part, which is that he doesn't really have faith, he just tries to keep that part quiet until a liberal idiot pulls at that string and unravels his entire grift, which is you make millions of dollars sounding like a Christian, talking about Christianity, while not really being a Christian and not being.
He's not made a new point. I've made all my points. What was that? 3 hours and 30 minutes. That's another segment. I'm going to leave it to you. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a judgment call. We're going to do why people left why lefties left the left. Okay. Effectively, we have two 90-minute segments of Nick the Knife Fuentes now for breakdown. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do a summary. Everything, in my opinion, that Nick the Knife Fuentes just highlighted, that he's a white Christian nationalist. He thinks that America is a white European country. He thinks that we should be segregationist. He thinks that we should be fundamentally Christian. He thinks that we should be America first. He thinks that Israel should not be on our support thing at all. He's relatively isolationist, etc. He believes all that. He thinks that he's getting increasing popularity because of how hardcore his followers are. Okay. And for me, I agree that his followers are hardcore. I believe that there's an appetite on the right for Nick Fuentes and for his belief structure. I don't think it's big enough or strong enough in order to fight out the what some people would call like the neocon center-right establishment. I don't think they're popular enough. I don't think they have enough money. I don't think they have enough propaganda. I don't think they're going to defeat it. I think they're going to be like the Buchanan right of the of the middle and late 20th century. I think that they are going to popularize a right-wing perspective that existed before World War II. But I think that the world economic and the world cultural order since World War II is too powerful. I don't think that they're going to be able to overcome it. When it comes to conservatism, I articulated what I believe is conservatism, which is the Burkean philosophy of doing the speed limit when it comes to social reform. And I think that that is a powerful and worthwhile political ideology worth studying, and not just worth studying, worth following. I think that Nick is, I think that that perspective is infinitely more politically fruitful than the authoritarian bullshit coming out of the far right and far left. A matrix support in oligarchs, a small portion of the population that controls everybody. They're just the mouthpieces. They're manipulating the world towards their own ends. I think that a Christian nationalist regime would do the same thing. I think it would just be different oligarchs, different people in power, which is what they're fighting for. So they can say, oh, yeah, but what we fight for is based. And I'm just going to say the same thing that I said earlier, which is, fuck you, what I fight for is more based than what you fight for. And we're just going to be different political tribal groups fighting for the soul of America, which is what it's been since the beginning, by the way. End of rant. Love you. Parasocial love. Have a great day. Catch you in the next one. See you on Valor Media Network. Bye for now.